Hi, I'm Annie Botticelli, and welcome to my deep dive report on the full moon in Capricorn, June 29th, 2026, and the days before that, the days after that, 7:57 p.m. Eastern Time. You can translate that for your location. But either way, this chunk of time at the end of June, in the beginning of July, is going to bring fullness, completion, fruition, drama, accomplishment, bringing hidden things to light from this full moon. So I'm going to give you a brief intro where we will discuss many different layers of how the energies are presenting around this full moon so that you can be prepared for the astrological weather. And then we'll do an additional layer, a deeper layer of how this full moon may affect your personal experience when we get to the timestamps. So this intro is for all signs. It will lay a foundation that I will not later discuss again, but we will add to it when we get to the timestamp section. I feel like full moons are one of the most exciting and fun things to track in astrology because pretty much everyone feels them. There are so many different layers of planetary transits and aspects and movements that we can track, that we can attune to, that we can use, that will affect us. But of all of them, really this full moon energy is the most profoundly obvious, in your face. And you can see this. You ask any law enforcement or hospital workers, are the upticks for events going on more at the full moon? And they will say yes, because this is a time when things on the inside come out, for better or worse. The emotions come out even during this more subdued Capricorn moon, because we're in an earthy sign here. But it's the fullness of the moon is expressing in our lives, and things that were hidden are coming to light. Things that we have been working on are ready to come out, and many areas of your life, it will all come down to this. Okay, so in our layered stepwise approach to understanding the nuances of this full moon, we have to remember you'll be feeling this days before, you'll be feeling this days after June 29th, this period of time. There's this building and then this, pinnacle, and then this releasing that is occurring. So for all signs, there's going to be some layer of this fullness in Capricorn. Your place out in the world, your business, your work, your employment. If you're not employed and don't want to be, this could be your passion projects. This could be your community projects. This could be how you're known, the contributions that you make out in the world. It's the house that rules fame. It's the house that rules, or the sign and house that rules, how people know you in a context with what you're presenting out in the world. There could be parental figures here. Historically, this is father figure, but we can see, other parental energies come in here. This can be yourself as a parent, leadership qualities. There's a discipline, there's a sternness, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. There's something that has been worked on for the last 13 moons, which is about a year, that could be culminating now. There could be something more recent, like a 27 to 28 day moon cycle where something is culminating, and there could be many layers at once. But what's up here is where you show out in the world, where you shine, and what you're ready to show. So for many people, this can be a very big accomplishment moon. This can be a time when things that you've been working on become visible. Now, at the same time, we have to talk about what else is going on in the stars at this time so we know how best to use this. And it turns out, on this exact day, Mercury is actually going retrograde. So if you're trying to bring out a very big launch, if you're trying to bring out your life's work, if you're trying to plan to have a long-term offering, something you want to be intact for a long time, this may not be the moon to bring it out. It may be the moon to take some steps, to check into some things, to evaluate some things. You'll have better stars August 8th through August 31st for launches. But right now we're sitting on this precipice. Precipice is a word you're going to hear me use a lot for this report. We're sitting on this precipice between the tides turning in and about to very deeply go in. So you are standing on the shore at this time and the tides are coming to you. And we are in this space of watching to see what's going to happen. So that means if we're trying to orchestrate something or make something happen, it might not be the time to do that. But if something has already been in the works and it naturally happens at this time, like let's say it's your retirement or there's a retirement party and all of this was planned a long time ago, or it was out of your hands to plan the exact date, you may find something coming to fruition that's out of your hands at this time. But that's a big difference between something you're trying to make happen. Because a lot of times things that are launched during the time of a retrograde gets called into question, or it turns out shorter term or different than we expect. So, just to kind of know that if you can either observe and wait on the shore to see what comes to you, or you can work on things in the backdrop. But it's not, when the tides are coming in, if you try to put something out on those tides, it will come back to you. So, it's important to know that to properly use this moon. Something else that we always really need to take into consideration, and I don't know that it's always discussed during full moon discussions, but we really need to look at the polarity of the moon story. Because right now we're looking at the full moon in Cap, the things I've already described. But what is lighting up that moon? It's the sun in Cancer. So this Cancer Capricorn polarity is going to be at play. Cancer rules the home, the family, the housing, your inner world. Cap is your outer world. Cancer is your emotional connection and your emotional realm. Capricorn is your logical realm. So we see the sun, Hygeia, Mercury about to be in retrograde, Jupiter again on the precipice of going into Leo for the first time in 12 years. So that's why I said that word precipice is going to come up. There's something in this weird, like suspended in time holding pattern at this moment where it's, you'll be able to understand it more the more you tune into it. But we've got a massive amount of Cancer energy. I'm sorry. So even though we've got the moon itself in Capricorn, we've got all of this emotion behind it. We've got it all coming down to this 1 year cycle of Jupiter moving through Cancer, ending now at the full moon time. So something having to do with the last year, not just from the 13 moon cycle, like the year moon cycle, but also because Jupiter has been in this place for all this time. So that's adding to the importance of this moon for some sort of long-term project where it's coming down to this time. There's a decision, there's a consideration. And like I said, you might not be able to actually make the decision at this time unless it's a silent one, a quiet one, a one that's flexible, one that, has some wiggle room to change, because over the upcoming weeks, all the rest of June, all of July, into the beginning of August, there's this reconsidering, this questioning, this reevaluating, this editing, this going back over. But there's still something that's culminating from the last year. And it is coming down to this. And it very much can be related to home and family and housing, your internal world, and of course, your place out in the world. And the dance between those two polarities. That's one of the most important things to note at this time. While Capricorn is not a very variety-seeking type of energy, we do have Mars just recently in Gemini that's going to flavor this moon, where on the side you may be having some different interests or some different things you're working on as it relates to this bigger thing you're looking at. If you need to get a job and you're concerned that Mercury is going in retrograde and that you shouldn't get one. If it's something short-term, flexible, that you don't have to go through a lot to get to or commit to, saying yes to things in Mercury retrograde, especially if you need it, can be perfectly acceptable. It's a great time for things to come in. But again, notice the difference between this and making a decision to move across the continent on a whim at this time, because it may be shorter term or different than you think. So that's this is the kind of thing that you have to weigh at this moon time as far as how you may consciously use it. Maybe you'll decide to just sit back and watch to see what comes to you. And maybe you'll work on some things in the backdrop. But it is going to relate to your inner world, your outer world, the logic, the intuition, the home housing, your place in the house, your place in the world. And you will see this dance going back and forth. Also flavoring this moon is going to be the aspects that occur and are influencing around it. So we have to add in that layer. And we've got this impending Jupiter-Mars angle. So this is a 60-degree angle of possibility. Mars is how you use your energy. Jupiter rules expansion, luck, optimism. So there is this promise. There is this set of opportunities that could be diverse. There could be multiple opportunities because of the Gemini that are coming in at this full moon time. So you can be given some choices, given some options, given some, experimentation opportunities. And that's something to really evaluate at this time. Now, there is one kind of bigger, badder aspect that is not exact until July 1st. But because it's such a big one, it's between two outer planets. It's Chiron and Jupiter. I'm going to mention it here because it will be flavoring this full moon. So this is going to talk about expansion wanting to happen, but a chironic wound needing to be addressed before you move forward. And that might be where you see this kind of holding pattern, where you feel this accomplishment is coming. Maybe it's starting to dribble in. Maybe you feel like it's due. And this story between Chiron, the wounded healer, and Jupiter, the great expander, is saying, okay, you want to expand, but not so fast. First, you have to heal that wound that is interfering with your next level of expansion. And maybe you need to take the next 5 or 6 weeks to work through that so that when the energy opens up again into August, that you can properly address what those things are. So let's say maybe you're ready to move to the next level in your work experience, but maybe that would require a move of your household. And maybe you don't want to change something in your household, or maybe you have to upgrade your house or change your houses. There's something related to home and your place in the world and your work that you're not quite ready to move forward. So you will see that be revealed at this moon time, and that, can be annoying. It can feel stifling, but it can be exciting because it may finally give you the answers as to what it is that you need to move forward and why you have not been. So in that way, we can get back into the reflective mode of both the impending retrograde, of both, the full moon can be very reflective, where you're seeing what is it that's standing in between you and the next step that you want to go to. There's also a bigger story at play here as we're entering deeper into eclipse season. There are 2 eclipses in August, and this full moon is sort of a catalyst into this deeper level of the eclipse story. So many very big changes are coming. You're starting to get the news, but again, you might not see how it's going to go or what you're supposed to do with it. So you're standing here, maybe something's coming in, but you're not exactly sure what the next step is. So if you find yourself needing to halt and take in information at this full moon, then don't be upset that it's not feeling productive. It could be inwardly productive that can lead to outward productivity at a later time. In my June report, I go do a deep dive into Jupiter moving into the sign of Leo for each sign. So you can go back to that if you want to get more understanding as to where Jupiter's going. You can check that out there. Right, we're about to go into the timestamp section. Just before we get there, in another browser right now, go to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to receive your July star report written by me with all the sweet and salty dates of the month and how you can use them. If you have important things that you have to navigate, you want to know the weather kind of day by day, you can get that free report there at anniehelpsyou.com. Click on Unleash. You can also see how to learn astrology with me and access my action calendar for the year through my secret star portal, and you can see all of that there. Now, as you move into the timestamps, on YouTube, you can find the timestamps in chapters underneath. They're also in the notes under the video, and they're in a pinned post under the video. For podcast listeners, if you've had trouble in the past accessing chapters for the timestamps, I think I've fixed that now. So regardless of what venue you're listening on through podcast, you should be able to click on the chapters tab if they're not readily visible right there, and be able to listen to the timestamps for your sign that way. And you can listen for your sun, your moon, your rising, whatever placements that you know will each give you an additional layer. Okay, I'll see you in the timestamp section next. Okay, Aries friends, so this full moon in Capricorn at 8 degrees of Cap happening on June 29th, 2026 is happening for you / us, because I have Aries rising with you, in the 10th house. This always occurs for Aries placements since we have what's called a natural chart, which puts the first sign on the first house, which is the natural placement. That means that we have not only the full moon in the sign of Capricorn, but we additionally have it in the house of Capricorn. That means everything about Capricorn is doubled, magnified, amplified for us at this full moon time. So our place out in the world, all of the things that I talked about in the intro is just basically double time. And the other important note we need to see here is that Capricorn makes a square to Aries. So this is a breakthrough moment for Aries. Breakthroughs could be very, very, very exciting, especially when you're stuck, especially when you've been in a holding pattern. And as I told you, there is something weird and holding pattern-y about this time because of the precipice of, the placements that I talked about there. But there's something that may wind up becoming an inner breakthrough. It could turn out to be an outer breakthrough. It could be both. But there's something cracking open here, and there's a major birth. And while I said it's not really the best time for a big launch, it could be a good time for a promo. It could be a time for some important steps. It could be a time to reevaluate something. It could be a time to make something happen on the inner plane so that when the tides start moving forward again, it will go out into the outer planes. But there is a point of tension here for Aries placements that you will feel this sort of cracking open. And sometimes this is just the bittersweet push of getting to a point where you're at the next level of something. There could be something notable going on with father figures, fathers, again, I said it could be any parent, but there's sort of that type of figure, male-ish figures in our lives that sometimes are brought up by this moon, especially this house, because Saturn traditionally governs sort of like the paternal father energy. And so there's something there. Maybe one of those people needs help. Maybe, there's a lot of things that this can encompass, but it is a square point. So let's do a deep dive now into all of the different ways that I have seen a full moon in the 10th house manifest so that you can have a very wide range of things to look out for and actively use during this full moon in Cap. Okay, let's do a deep dive into what the full moon in your 10th house can look like. What is brought to fruition or completion or accomplishment? What kind of drama or elucidation may occur? What bubbles up from your subconscious mind or from the hidden realms in other arenas of your life? Major thing that comes to light during the full moon in the 10th house is a career or public life culmination point. Remember that public life is not always paid. Okay, so although there is a very strong focus with the moon in this location of your chart with employment, career, business, huge for all of that. And you may see accomplishment, drama, culmination, fruition. Over the last 13 moons or around a year, something coming to a head, or it could be 4 weeks or some other shorter moon cycle. But it is that area of life for work and career where we make money, where we trade our gifts and skills and energy for sustenance out in the world, even if it's from the home. But there is this focus on public life as well. And this is true for those who are employed and for whom employment is relevant. And this is true for those who are retired or who don't need to work. Everybody has some sort of public life, whether they just go to the store and get stuff or whether they have a major connection out there. But this moon reflects some sort of culmination point, some sort of awareness, a heightened awareness of the goals and direction and the long-term path of how you're going to show up in the world. It may result in increased visibility. Your actions and your reputation may be on display. This is a house of fame. So fame could come to you, small or big, in a small circle or a wide circle, or just among people that you know, just being acknowledged for something and just general accomplishments. There's this sense of this is where I stand, this is what I've done, this is what I'm capable of, and then others can see it too. So recognition and results or turning points in career or responsibilities. Some of the responsibilities we have in life are not pertaining to job. Sometimes the job is at home with the family, or the job is in taking care of somebody else, being a caretaker in one way or another. Those are all ruled by this placement, because this is the house of responsibilities. What you're responsible for, who you're responsible for, and to comes up at this full moon. Historically, this has related to father or father figures, authorities or bosses, but we really can see anybody of importance, in the discipline in our lives. If you had a single mom that was super strong, that was, your disciplinarian, sometimes she shows up here, or any other person that played that role where they were the skeleton that held you up while your essence animated. This is a very foundational, structural, and skeletal, literally and figuratively, type of energy. You may notice emotional responses that are tied to this achievement or pressure or expectations or future goals. And this spotlight on your impact or your authority or your leadership or how it's perceived may come up. There may be these situations that will clarify or cast light on or cast questions about your role in the world. Some things that may reach fruition or completion have to do with a career goal or a project or a professional milestone or a public works situation. If you're volunteering, it could be a volunteering project, something where you're doing something in the world. You may notice efforts where you're trying to build something meaningful and lasting. That may come to fruition now. Maybe you've been working on it over the last 13 moons. Maybe there's been more of a quiet cycle and now you're ready to go into the next level, the next chapter. You could have decisions about your direction or your purpose or your public identity and notice this cycle of stepping into responsibility or leadership, or in some cases, stepping down from that. Maybe you're at the pinnacle and you have reached your life work goal and maybe you're retiring, or maybe you're passing the torch. There's something that's going on here where it's a pinnacle, and that may mean that you are continuing to rise from there, or that may mean that you are stepping down from that type of responsibility, or where a level of responsibility is no longer needed. Maybe you have kids graduating from high school or college, and that place where you've had to show up for a certain level of responsibility has now shifted. These kind of things about responsibility may come up. Things that may bubble up from your unconscious or subconscious mind are these hidden feelings about success and worthiness and recognition and pressure, and this deeper truth about how you spend your time doing work, if it feels aligned or obligatory, and if there's a way to rectify that or accept it. These fears around visibility or failure or being judged, these expectations that you may have for yourself, where you may be overextending yourself to meet yours or other people's expectations, or this realization about what success actually means to you. This is a huge thing that I weave throughout my work, because success is a subjective experience. And what one person describes as success may not be the same thing as for someone else. We have a collective societal view on success that may or may not match our own principles or our own goals. And topics like that, you may be asking, maybe your family wants you to become a certain thing in life, and if you do that, that's successful for you. Or maybe they did, and now you're at the other end of that. But maybe you have a different definition of success for yourself. Or maybe the same thing. Maybe there is underachieving expectations where someone who is helping to form you or help to form you had very basic goals of what success meant, and you wanted to expand upon that. This is a very personal, subjective questioning process of what success means, and it can clarify what you need to do to be on track with what that success feels like to you. On this planet of duality, we always will have this tension from the other side. We see the energy of duality intrinsic in the human experience. We see it in the astrology chart. Each house, each sign has its opposing and complementary force. The 10th house is the counterbalance to the 4th house. So you may see at the full moon this push and pull between those energetics. Public life versus private life. Career versus home and emotional needs. Achievement versus inner fulfillment. Responsibility and rest and grounding being on these opposite poles, or how you can balance them. So you may feel this pull between this need to show up and achieve and this need to take care of your inner world and your foundation. And that will be very powerful at this time. And maybe you'll have all your balls up in the air and be getting it all right. And maybe you'll feel like you're failing miserably, and you'll reevaluate at the moon, and you'll be emotional, and then you'll move on from it. There are many opportunities and gifts that come from these moon cycles. One of the ones that comes from this 10th house moon is that you really may get to see your path more clearly in the outer world, where you can align your ambitions with what truly matters to you, where you can take the moment of recognition and redirection and responsibility and make very forward-moving decisions with those things. And you can step into a role that really reflects your authentic process and, what people thought you should be or what you thought you were supposed to be versus what you really want to be. Some aligned actions you can take have to do with acknowledging what you've accomplished so far and making a clear decision about what your next professional steps or your next outer world steps may be. You may have an important conversation that's related to career or direction. You may ask for a raise or a lateral transfer. You may move, look into moving for work or looking into changing professions, or just basically be asking the questions and taking some steps along this path, even if it's planting a seed in your own mind. There also may be an adjustment of goals to better reflect your changing values and this step up where leadership is being asked of you, or where maybe you evaluate that you are doing too much leading and now it's time to start delegating. Another aligned action you can take is to just allow yourself to be seen and recognized. Sometimes that's not easy for some people, and this may be a time where it's just time for you to accept being in the limelight. Every placement, every house, all have their shadow sides, thanks to this world of duality that we live in. Some of the shadow sides that may come up with the elucidation of the full moon in the 10th house are overworking, or tying your worth to achievement, or fear of judgment, or fear of visibility and safety holding you back, taking on too much responsibility and not delegating, and ignoring your personal or emotional needs in favor of these responsibilities. You could also be evaluating whether you're chasing external success without any internal alignment. And that all could come up from the shadow side perspective. I love simple rituals at the moon cycle times to ground in the energy and work with the potentials. I like to call the full moon ceremonies reveal and release ceremonies, where you can ask for anything along the topics of anything I discussed to be revealed and released, and where you can make progress on goals in those areas. It's a great time to reflect on what you've built or accomplished and to ask what success means to you, then to say it out loud, write it down, and feel it as if it's already come true. These steps help you to activate a brain filter called the reticular activating system that will filter in or out information based on your input. So you're coding your brain with doing this type of a ritual. And you can also take one clear, aligned action along the topics that we've discussed that are ruled here. Every area of the chart has body rulership as well. And this area rules the skeletal system, as I was alluding to before, bones and joints. And so that's physically relating to those structures, and also mineral balance as it relates to those structures. And the energetic versions of that: support, longevity, resilience. Knees come up here, and energetically that's flexibility versus rigidity and moving forward. The skin and the structural integrity of the body, and the impact of pressure and stress and responsibility on physical health. These energy patterns that are tied to this long-term endurance and sustainability. All of the physical and energetic components that relate to these energies may be brought up now. So this full moon may highlight where the pressure or responsibility is being carried in the body and where more support is needed. If you have symptoms in those areas or any other areas, it may be the perfect time to use the elucidation of the moon to get answers about what is going on, and to find resources or to intend in or activate your reticular activating system to filter in things that would be solutions to the problems that you have on those levels. Bottom line here is this is a very powerful moment of visibility, of limelight, of achievement, of directional clarity, of scaling the mountain and getting to enjoy the glory of being in that position. And it is about career development. It is about public life development, but more, it's this clear reflection of your path in life out in the world and the opportunity to align it with your true purpose. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Okay, Taurus friends. So this full moon in Capricorn for you is going to happen in the 9th house of Sagittarius. So we're going to do a deep dive into what it looks like when you've got a full moon in the 9th house. But the other important note I wanted to point out here before we get into that deep dive is that this is actually in an angle that is the most favorable aspect in all of astrology for you, the trine. So, there's a chance for extra goodies, kisses for Taurus placements from this. All Taurus placements have a chance for the extra kisses, but the earlier you are in the Taurus placement, so we'll say like the April born towards like the beginning of May, first couple of days of May, you may get an extra kiss, or if your degrees are between 3 and 13 degrees, the closer to 8 degrees, you may get an even more noticeable kiss from this full moon. All right, so let's do a deep dive and see what it looks like when you've got a full moon in the 9th house, how you can use this energy and the kind of things that you may see show up. All right, now for our deep dive into the full moon in the 9th house, see what may come to light, what may be revealed and elucidated, the drama, the fruition, the accomplishment. What might that look like for you with this full moon here? This placement is an expansive and truth-revealing culmination point that will very likely bring heightened awareness around your beliefs and your perspectives and your life direction. The place where everything ties together, kind of the vantage point that you look at everything from the bigger picture. A sense that something's clicking into place or no longer makes sense. A worldview, a perceptual view that governs and oversees many other things in your life. Something big is in the works or being accomplished, and it may follow this 13 moon or 12-month cycle of accomplishment. It's coming to a head right now. Sometimes we see these moons bring something smaller, like a 4 week or so cycle. But there is something subtle, at least, that's at play for this 13 moon cycle. These realizations around purpose and meaning and what you stand for and your principles. This increased visibility of opportunities that relate to travel, immersion in different cultures and languages, learning, teaching, sharing ideas, communicating big ideas through books or spoken word or other venues. This pull towards freedom and growth and bigger possibilities. Everything is bigger at this full moon when it's in the 9th house. Those conversations or events that really can shift your perspective significantly could happen now, where you meet someone and they say something and all of a sudden the lights go on in your being and your view just expands. You may have adventure. You may have immigration or international business topics come up. You may be ready to publish a book. You may feel this spotlight or see this spotlight in your spiritual truth and how you express it. Some things that may be coming to fruition or completion could be a learning journey. There could be a milestone there for you or someone close to you. Graduation, a completion of a program, or you being ready finally to make the decision to step into a new level of study or a new type of study. So a learning journey, a teaching role, a belief system, a philosophy you've been developing, all can come to this fruition completion. It may be ready to be revealed, either to you or to others from you. This cycle of questioning about what you believe versus, or what you used to believe versus what you believe now, and what used to be true for you versus what's true for you now. It's an exploration process. It's a horizon expanding process. Something you've been exploring now may become more clear or integrated or ready to share. You may connect dots where you realize that there's a connection between things that seemed unrelated. And that big moment of that bigger picture is very common when there's a full moon in this placement. Something that you may see is whether the life you're living aligns with what you truly believe is possible and whether it's time to stretch that bigger. Or possibly it's stretched too far and it needs to be reined in a little bit. Some of the things that could bubble up or be revealed are these limiting beliefs that have quietly shaped your decisions and are at the root of everything that you do. The deeper truth about what you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be doing it. A frustration with feeling confined or restricted. This desire for more meaning, growth, expansion, openness, flexibility. There could be realizations that challenge a previous perspective that you have, where you are forced to kind of widen the view on something. It can definitely feel like an awakening. And once you see this truth, it's something that you can't unsee. So there's going to be tension in this energetic between the 9th house and its opposing house, which is the 3rd house. Everything in our lives is based on this system of duality. We are on the planet of duality. And yes, maybe we can learn to transcend duality while still in form. That's a spiritual goal for many, and it's a possibility. But we still do have to look at things from the side of this or that and the opposing forces. So you can see this in the chart too. So this big picture versus more mundane details. The beliefs versus the facts or perceived facts. The big vision versus the daily reality. The expansion versus the practical day-to-day. So you may feel this pull between this desire to grow and expand and follow this bigger vision versus the need to deal with what's right in front of you, or there may be this analysis paralysis where you have taken in so much information that you cannot do that anymore, and now it's time to connect it all and do something with it. There are many opportunities and gifts. One of them is that you may be able to see this truth within your being, that expansive truth, more clearly and honestly, which will let you realign your life with what actually feels meaningful. Meaningfulness is a very big tagline here in this 9th house with the full moon there. It's definitely a moment of potential clarity and expansion and direction where something that was hidden becomes revealed. And you have a chance to release these limiting beliefs and step into greater possibility. You can take aligned actions to utilize this moon. First step, reflect on what you truly believe and what no longer fits. Make a decision that aligns with this bigger vision, even if it's small. You can share your ideas and insights or teachings, or go into the rabbit hole of learning. This is a big learning moon, and you may go on a massive bender and accomplish a lot of studying or gathering of insights in a short amount of time. You may share your ideas or insights or teachings with others and feel ready to reveal that to the world. You may take some sort of small or big step towards traveling or learning or expansion or different languages. You may find yourself traveling at this moon or doing something that will give you the opportunity to travel in the future. You may find the drive to say yes to something that gets you out of your comfort zone be very strong at this time. And this really strong draw to connect with mentors and teachers or people who inspire you, or bodies of work that inspire you. Every placement has its shadow side in the world of duality. And some of the things to be mindful of where the shadow energies can come out with this 9th house are through acting impulsively on a new belief without necessarily grounding it, like throwing the baby in the bathwater, out with the bathwater, just this sort of reckless excess, rejecting this practical responsibility that you may have in favor of escape to a degree that it's dysfunctional or having bad outcomes. There could be a rigidity that comes from the openness. And this is a strange part of the shadow side of this placement, where openness and expansion and a bigger view turns into, now this is the only way. And then it goes backwards and it goes into rigidity. That is a shadow side of this area. overcommitting to too many things is a huge shadow side where there's so much interest in so many things. And it's fine to have a lot of diversity and interest or action at this time. It is very aligned with the moon to do that. But if there's overcommitment, overexpansion, overdoing, that can definitely be the shadow side. And there may be this ignoring of details that still need attention, where the bigger view is so supreme that taking the action to get there may be lost in that shadow. I love simple rituals to help ground in the energies of the moon cycles. You can reflect on what you believed 4 weeks ago, on what you believed 13 moons or a year ago, and what has changed in that time, what you know now to be true or believe now to be true, and what you still want to know. What do you want to expand into? What horizons or adventures would you like to have? You write them down, you say them out loud, and you feel them as if they've already come true. And then take an action that's aligned with that vision. And all of this activates this brain filter called the reticular activating system, which is where manifestation turns physiological. Manifestation can actually be physiological because we can align parts of our physical body to moving towards a certain goal. So you can utilize that with a ritual like that. Every area of the chart and every house, which is in a field of experience we have as humans, has its body part rulership. And this part rules the hips and thighs and physically, and also the energy of movement and forward motion and freedom. Also rules liver function and the detoxification and filtration processes in the liver, and that discernment of which pathway things go down through the liver. Energetically, it relates to that connection between belief systems and your physical vitality and the ways that your belief systems are serving you or working against your physical vitality. The energy of restlessness in the body when growth or movement is needed, and this tie to expansion and exploration with physical freedom. So you may see highlighted at this full moon where your body's craving movement, expansion, or a shift in direction. You may get this sense that you really need to detox out your physical body or your mental belief systems. And you may need some attention to your hips and thighs. Stretching, a very common thing that comes up with this area is hip flexor tightness and trouble that comes from tight hip flexors like the psoas. And a lot of times this can be shunted fear. The psoas muscle holds a lot of fear, and it can be this kind of never-ending cycle where the fear, is making your psoas muscle tight, but then because your psoas muscle's tight, you feel fear. So just hip stretches, I can't diagnose, treat, or prescribe. If you have weak bones or something else with your alignment, stretching may not be good for you. But things like looking into psoas stretches or other hip flexor stretches that could counteract sitting a lot. And you can see the energy of being up and walking and physical movement versus the energy of being sitting down and having your body kind of more crunched together. That's kind of the dynamic that we're feeling at this moon. And you may see that physically. And it may be time for a health breakthrough or a health drama that shows you something that's been under the surface that needs attention. So this is a time for new insights, but that's kind of an understatement. It's more of a profound realignment with your beliefs that open up the path forward in this majorly expanded way. And some of the awareness of new systems coming in may be able to be further ushered in by the detoxification process energetically on every level. Getting to know your liver, genetic mutations in the liver that may make you process things differently, pharmaceutical drugs, other substances, other toxins, emotions. You may process these things differently, and you may get information about that by doing a deep dive into your personal liver profile and your genetic analysis. And this could go hand in hand with the energetics of this moon. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Gemini friends. All right, let's see where this full moon is going to light up for you. You're going to have this fullness, completion, fruition, drama, for better or worse, in your 8th house. So we're going to do a deep dive into what it looks like and the many different things I've seen, how you can use this energy, what you can expect. And do know that this is at a little bit of an awkward angle for you. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to manifest badly or with stress. It's just there's something that's got to get worked out here. The planets are not in harmony. We're talking about an earth full moon and your air sign. There's just a little bit of miscommunication here. So, there's a little bit of awkwardness in this expression. But let's look and see what a full moon in the 8th house will look like for you. Okay, so let's look at the deep dive into what the full moon in your 8th house can look like, what bubbles up, what comes to a head, what culminates, the areas of drama, of breakthroughs, of reflection that occur during this elucidation in this area of your chart. So one of the major things that comes to light with a full moon in the 8th house is a very deep emotional and transformational culmination point. This is a water house. It's very much related to the emotions. It's very much related to the energy of transformation. And you may get this heightened awareness of intimacy, vulnerability, control dramas, power, how people use their power, energetic exchange. These emotions rise to fullness around trust and control and shared experiences, collaborations and shared resources. This sense of something hidden now becoming visible is going to be occurring, and with the little piece that it can no longer be ignored. If there was something that you were putting off that may have to be dealt with, this full moon may make it clear. This 8th house also relates to legacies and the financial relationships and legal relationships around resources, wills, trusts, legal earnings or winnings or costs, loans, credit, debt. Something in that arena or those arenas may come to a head at this point, become elucidated, may come to fruition. And that fruition can be a 13 moon cycle in the works, like around a calendar year. It could be shorter, like a 4-week cycle. And something is coming to a head. So maybe you complete something or you finally get something that you're trying to do. If you need resources of any kind, this full moon can show the way. There's going to be this increased intensity in close relationships or entangled situations. Emotional, financial, karmic entanglement is very much the arena of this house. Financial matters that involve these shared resources, parental money, spousal money, other shared money will definitely come into focus for many people at this time who have this full moon occurring in the 8th house. There may be a pull towards this privacy or depth or this truth beneath the surface. Mysteries want to be revealed. Information that was hidden wants to be gotten out. Psychological, spiritual breakthroughs. Anything that's in the inner or lesser seen world has a chance to be brought out, including connections with spirit, people who've passed on, any kind of unseen realm, angels, all of that. You may notice that there are power dynamics and emotional bonds out in full view. And you can either see the glory or the dysfunction of those very, very deeply entrenched relationships and dynamics. Some things that can come to fruition or completion may involve a cycle around these shared finances and debts or investments. These emotional bonds or intimate relationships these patterns around power or empowerment or disempowerment, places where you've been merging energy, time, or resources with others, or that you want to do that more fully. And there's something that's been building beneath the surface now that the moon is going to become or bring to clarity, and it will be undeniable. Maybe questions like, is this exchange truly empowering, or is it draining and imbalanced, may come up in important relationships around you. Some other things that bubble up or are revealed at this time when the full moon is in the 8th house are the subconscious fears around loss, control, emotional exposure, death. This is a house that has rulership from the Lord of Death. So whether it's literal death or figurative death, there is this phoenix rising from the ashes sort of energy that occurs here. There may be unspoken truths in these intimate or entangled relationships, these hidden attachments or dependencies, places where you may be holding on out of fear rather than alignment, and places of toxic money and toxic intimacy. That is a very big topic that may come to light, where you're getting some sort of sustenance from something or someone. But the level of toxicity that is given hand in hand with that may be more than it's worth, and you may be reconsidering this type of dynamic and doing inner work or making outer decisions on breaking that pattern. It's definitely very, very high chance to feel intense. Water moons tend to be even more emotionally intense because, or in water houses or however that works, because they're speaking to the emotional level just like the moon is speaking to the emotional level. So there's going to be this revelation of what's real at the deepest level, this tension between this 8th house and its opposing force, which is the 2nd house axis. Everything, well, this is the planet of duality. We can see that everywhere, and you can see it in astrology. You can see it in the astrology wheel. Every sign, every house has its opposing and complementary force. And so you feel this push and pull when some house is activated, like this 8th house is for you. It's pulling in information from the dynamic between the 8th and 2nd houses. And this tension can look like shared versus personal resources, control versus surrender, power versus disempowerment or empowerment, independence versus entanglement, self-worth versus reliance on other, doing things alone and doing things with others. So you may feel this pull between the need to protect and stand in your own value and this need to trust and merge or release control or share power. There are many opportunities and gifts that come from this placement, but you will definitely get to see your deeper emotional and energetic patterns more clearly, especially the more you look. You can definitely transform how you engage with intimacy and trust and shared power and money. This is a place of the lesser seen types of money. Sometimes things like crypto, other types of investments where it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it is, but nonetheless, it is a financial platform or mode of some kind. And this full moon can definitely bring these moments of release and empowerment and renewal, and you can let go of what drains you and reclaim your personal power. It's very much about the reclamation of personal power and the discovery about where you are surrendering that. Some aligned actions that you can take have to do with addressing these shared financial matters with clarity and honesty. You may be investigating how you can do paperwork or legal things around finances. You can have those deep, meaningful conversations, maybe that you've been avoiding. You can focus on releasing attachments that no longer feel aligned or that are really taking from you. You can set energetic and emotional boundaries. You can engage in inner work, like psychological and spiritual modalities, and allow this transformation instead of resisting the change. There is going to be a very big pull between this topic of digging your heels down and resisting change and embracing the transformation. And so anything you do to kind of work with that actively will be aligned. There's a shadow side to every placement, and this 8th house is the ruler of shadow sides. So lots of nasty stuff can come out. Deep fears, ugly behavior, power struggles or control dynamics, scarcity-based thinking or behavior, fear-based decisions, holding on too tightly, emotional resentments, letting emotional resentments pile up, emotional overwhelm without any grounding, falling into an abyss of overwhelm, avoiding unnecessary, avoiding necessary change and avoiding unnecessary drama, maybe a topic, several topics that you look at, and obsessive thinking or behavior, or digging without resolution. Sometimes the digging is the problem itself, and sometimes not digging is the problem itself. So evaluating that area of the shadow side, all of that can be helpful. Okay, so there are simple rituals that you can do to ground this in. I always like to do rituals at the moon, and the ones at the full moon I call reveal and release rituals. Reflecting on what you're deeply connected to or attached to, and what feels empowering and draining, and how you use your power, and how other people around you use their power, and how you respond to that. Writing down the breakthroughs that you want to have, what you're ready to release or transform. Saying these things out loud, feeling them as if they've already come true. Those are all ways to activate that brain filter called the reticular activating system, that you can consciously have input towards what it filters in and out. So when you do this, writing it down, saying it out loud, feeling it as if it's come true, you're activating this part of your being, and that helps your filter to work for your intentions, to filter out distractions and to filter in things that will be supportive to the outcomes. You can also ground in the ritual with doing something symbolic or real as an act of release. Every area of the chart relates to different parts of the body, and sometimes those parts of the body or systems will come into focus at this time when there's a full moon in that space. Reproductive organs and the hormonal systems are here. Elimination and detoxification pathways like the colon, the bladder, and those systems. The deep regenerative processes within the body, even restoration of telomeres. If you're into health and quantum healing and understanding where our medical system is going to go into the future, look up telomeres and understand how the loss of telomeres and how the protection of telomeres is going to become even more relevant as we go into our next level of healing. But those kind of deeply regenerative processes are ruled in this house. That connection between the emotional intensity and the physical tension and symptoms, and areas where the body holds stored stress, unprocessed emotion, and resentments. So not only is this a very powerful moment of this emotional truth, release, and transformation, this phoenix rising from the ashes, it is about a deep clearing that really restores your energy systems and your power and your capacity for deeper levels of connection and intimacy and fulfillment. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Okay, Cancer friends, let's look and see where this full moon at 8 degrees of Capricorn is going to show up for you. This is going to be in your 7th house of relationships. Of course, as we talked about with in the intro, the Cancer and Capricorn is a polarity. So there is this push and pull. This 180-degree angle may add to the intensity, but can also add to the rewards or the outcomes for you, because sometimes this push and pull is what brings progress or brings action or something. And sometimes an opposition like this can mean you've got all your balls up in the air and you're juggling them really well. So it could be, a really great balance and accomplishment point as well. So let's look at what a deep dive into a full moon in the 7th house looks like, what you can use that energy for, and what you can expect. Okay, let's do this deep dive into what it will look like, what opportunities you have, what is elucidated, what bubbles up from the subconscious mind, what comes to fruition, completion, drama, when you have a full moon in the 7th house. Very commonly, what comes to light during a full moon in the 7th house is a relationship or partnership culmination point. Something's coming to a head. It could be just over a 4-week cycle. It could be over 13 moon or like a year cycle, or anything in between, or anything after that. There is something cyclical at nature here, though, or at work here. And you will see this heightened awareness of the one-on-one dynamics you have in your life. You'll feel those emotions rising around connecting with others, balancing out self-care versus interacting with other people, looking at topics like codependence, interdependence, dependency on people or things, reciprocity, and finding balance in those arenas. This sense of this is where we stand in a key relationship may come out at this full moon time. And that could be a happy moment, like, wow, this is great. Something's culminating, a major relationship event may occur. Or there could be an awareness that there's actually a huge problem, a red flag, or something that needs to be worked out before moving on. And that may come up and out at this time. Important conversations, turning points, or decisions in your relationship space, business, romantic, social, anything, any other kind of relationship. This one-on-one focus is what is at stake here, what is in the limelight here. You may have encounters that really act as a mirror that reflects back part of yourselves. One of the first things that my astrology teacher told me when I started studying astrology is that the 7th house energies tend to be a mirror in the way that there are parts of ourselves that express through other people that we try to come to terms with through seeing them in other people. And that can often get confused as this person is doing that. Not to say that everything that someone else does is our fault or our doing, but there's something in it for us. And at this moon, you may actually get some insight into what that is, a pattern, something that someone does, or that you've had many relationships where this pattern is occurring. You may be able to ask the question and get the answer as to why, what is in it for you, what is it trying to heal. And so these mirrors will come up at this time. You may feel this pull to fairness or harmony, mutual understanding, accord, or conversely, adversarial interactions. There's something about this push and pull between self and others at this time that can result in arguments and conflicts, but can also move through that into the harmony and the mutual understanding. And sometimes the things that are under the surface need to come out in order to properly do that. So the things coming to fruition or completion are relationship cycles, personal, business, relationship, are decisions about continuing, redefining, experimenting, releasing a partnership, efforts that improve communication or the balance of power or connection or understanding, and these patterns around how you relate and give and receive. Something's been building between you and someone else, and this starts to become very, very clear and undeniable. You get to see, is this relationship truly balanced and aligned for both of us? Is it going in a good direction? Can it ever? Are there adjustments that have to be made now? And if it is, you may have this full moon as your next step in moving forward into deeper relationship. So some things that are bubbling up or becoming revealed are these unspoken feelings, the things that are not being said, the things that are that we see through these passive-aggressive types of actions, but are never actually named. Unresolved dynamics, patterns of people-pleasing, overgiving, withholding for yourself or other people. These projections, that's what I was getting at before when I was talking about how my teacher was explaining. We tend to project out something unresolved within us onto other people in this house. So it may not be that you are doing or did the thing that someone does, but you could be doing the opposite, or someone else could have done this to you and there's a pattern that wants to be noticed. So it can feel really intense, you know, this fullness, completion, fruition drama in the relationship house can definitely bring something to a head in a stressful way, but it can also bring something to fruition in a very exciting way. Exciting news could come in, meeting someone that will become a very important person to you, progressing in relationships, engagements, weddings, news of a child on the way, all of these kind of things. So there's this tension between that 7th house and its opposing force, which is the 1st house. We can see the duality that's intrinsic in the human experience through everything in life, and we see it in the chart. Every sign, every placement on the wheel, the houses, they have their opposite and complementary force. And you really feel that tension at the full moon time of the self versus other, of the independence versus partnership, of the personal needs versus the shared needs or the other person's needs, of the assertion versus the compromise. So you will feel pulled between this need to honor yourself and the need to maintain harmony with others. One of the major gifts here is that you get to really see those relationship patterns clearly, create more balanced and conscious and reciprocal connections within those relationships, and adjust how you show up so that the relationship reflects your authentic self or your evolving self, because sometimes we get into relationships when we're in a certain space and that holds that pattern through its entirety, but we may notice at some point we've changed. And so this may be a moment of figuring out, can this relationship evolve with where you are currently at? Some aligned actions that you can take are to have an honest and grounded conversation with someone important, to set or refine these boundaries or expectations, to really hear what someone else has to say within relationship, and to speak in a way that you may be heard, maybe trying something different. This is a time where listening deeply is not just to respond, but to really, really understand, and you may have a breakthrough there. There's going to be a reflection on your role in relationship dynamics, possibly decisions about these partnerships if the clarity has arrived, the possibility of being open to compromise, and figuring out a solution that doesn't require self-abandonment. Or you may realize that there's actually nothing else that can be done, and this moon is bringing a completion. Every sign, every house, every placement has its potential shadow side. Some things to be mindful of if you're looking to see how the shadow may be manifesting at this time is that projection of your feelings onto others or your opinions onto others, losing yourself in an attempt to keep the peace, or not being open enough to a compromise, avoiding the necessary conversations, overreacting emotionally in the moment, expecting others to meet needs that maybe haven't been expressed clearly or haven't been heard or expressed in a way that the other can hear them. So these shadow pieces may come up, and being aware of them can help you to find resolution and to use the moon for the resolution from any conflict that may arise. I love to use rituals at moon times. I like to do what's called reveal and release ceremonies at the full moon, where you can ask to be informed of something that is a block, of information that you need, of patterns to be revealed so that you can see how to change them, and for steps that you need to take to move forward into resolution. When you ponder what a relationship has shown you, what you truly need in partnership, what you're willing to give and what you're not, and you write down and say out loud what you're ready to adjust or honor or release. Write them down, say them out loud, feel them as if they've already come true. These 3 steps help you to activate your brain filter called the reticular activating system, which is going to help you to filter in information supportive to those intentions and filter out distractions. Then you can take one relationship-focused action aligned with truth to seal this in. Of course, you can take more than that, but just, with the ritual, all of these components, including the action, even if it's small, to be able to anchor in utilizing this moon. From the body health standpoint, this 7th house rules the kidneys and the adrenal balance, your inner equilibrium, your lower back from the perspective of support and balance and alignment. Hormonal and fluid balance is also partly ruled here. The connection between relationship stress and physical equilibrium, and physical symptoms, and sensitivity to imbalance physically and emotionally, and how that affects your relationships and how that affects the body. So you may notice that those areas of your body need more support. They may be talking more loudly. You may be having pain, in your back. That may be muscular. Maybe it will be, cartilage or bone or muscle, but it could be organ pain. And sometimes we feel pain in an area where the pain is not originating from. It's called referred pain. So getting to a deeper level of understanding where different pains occur and what that could mean, and then starting to see how you can affect that with making different choices, could be part of the elucidation of this moon. So this is not necessarily just about relationship drama or accomplishment, but it's a clear reflection about how you relate, an aha moment in the arena of relationship space, and what needs to shift for that true balance and connection that you really want to come about. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. All right, Leo friends, let's go do a deep dive into what a full moon at 8 degrees of 8 degrees of Capricorn will look like for you. Capricorn shows up in Leo's 6th house, and it is a little bit of an awkward angle as we've got an earth moon with a fire sign. They don't always speak the same language. That doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be a bad manifestation. There's just some elemental misunderstandings that may occur from this. But now I'm going to show you what kind of things you can do with this full moon in the 6th house, what it looks like, and the kind of things that you may see with a full moon in the 6th house. Okay, let's do a deep dive in what it will look like when the full moon is happening in your 6th house. You're going to notice this heightened sense of awareness of your health, your daily habits, your routines, your workload, how you work, where you work, the people that surround you while you work, the people that you see every day, the things that you do every day, your systems and organizational habits, or lack of those. You'll get this sense of what is working in your life as far as a system, the things that you do every day, and what is not. It's a culmination point of the practical aspects of your life, of the functionality of your life, and how you go about doing things every day. You may notice shifts in your physical energy or physical body signals asking for help. This 6th house rules your physical body as a whole and your general health. Well, the 1st house rules your physical body, but the 6th house rules the habits that pertain to your physical body and your health in general. Stress levels, how you manage stress levels. You may see this increased visibility around you as a responsible person or viewpoints in other ways, maybe people being critical of you. The word critical is a very big one at this time. You may be being more critical of yourself or other people, or others may be scrutinizing you in different ways. You may be asking those questions about levels of responsibility, tasks, or obligations. Practical things you have to do every day. With full moons, there's generally some sort of emotional reaction, and when the full moon is in the 6th house, sometimes this reaction is going to be responsive to stress, or overwhelm, or imbalance. This bright light will be like a spotlight on your daily systems and how you manage your time and your efficiency, or not being efficient, sort of just this gauge that just brings to your awareness, brings to the relevancy these areas of your life. You may see matters involving pets or animals come into focus, their health routines or care. There may be some sort of topic around animals that's coming up very strongly. There may be something hidden regarding your animals or your health or their health that comes to light. Sometimes there are medical events that occur when the full moon happens in the 6th house, but sometimes there are medical solutions. So it's very focused on your health and wellness, but it's also can be very focused not just on treatment, diagnosis, resolution of issues, but it can also focus on being proactive and being preventative. So you may notice that you want to adjust some of your routines that maybe leave you less susceptible to colds or injuries because of good habits that you start with the elucidation of this full moon now. So you may see this need to adjust or refine or reset your day-to-day life. Something that you do every day may take major focus. Someone that you know may have something big going on, and that may affect your day-to-day experience. There will be things reaching fruition or completion that may be over just the last 4 or so weeks, or it may be the last 13 moons, which is about a calendar year. Some sort of cycle involving your health and routines and your daily habits, or your work projects, or your daily office experience. Something reaching a culmination that involves your productivity or how you manage your time and energy, your care routines, something that you've been doing consistently may show results now or consequences. So with the full moons, we have this big bubbling up of things in the subconscious or unconscious mind. So you may have some habits or patterns that are running on autopilot that you become acutely aware of now as being something like a matrix that you need to shift. You may become aware that you've been overworking or that you've been underworking or not supporting yourself enough. The emotions are always going to come into play, but they will often have these ties to these productive topics, whether you're being productive, whether you're being useful. The topic of perfectionism is definitely one that could come up with this moon. And there may be a deeper level of integration or systematic strategic focus that comes in now if things have been disorganized. You may feel really ready to make lists, have an app to organize things, just kind of get your ducks in a row. Sometimes this can be stressful, but it definitely will be clarifying as to what needs adjustment. And full moons are not always stressful in a bad way. Sometimes they just bring something you've been hoping for, like a medical resolution, like something positive going on with a pet or animal, like a workplace event acknowledged or something fun, happening there. There's going to be this tension between the 6th house and its opposite house, which is the 12th house. We can see the duality that's intrinsic in the human experience played out in these chart oppositions. And so you'll feel this doing versus being tension, this productivity versus rest, this control versus surrender, the daily responsibilities versus the deep emotional or spiritual needs, and caring for others versus caring for yourself. And you may be able to get all the balls up in the air at this time and have everything going, or it may become glaringly obvious what area of your life needs more support in order to be able to stay balanced. So you'll feel pulled between this need to stay on top of everything and this need to rest and restore. And, how it may be experienced gracefully where you've got it all down, or it may be experienced where you need to figure out a better system to be able to do this. There are so many opportunities that come and so many gifts, but a few of them include getting to really see your routines and your patterns very clearly, getting to see the weaknesses in your health and well-being systems. You can make these adjustments that will make your habits sustainable. If things that you're doing are not sustainable, that may come to light at this time. So it's really a big moment of practical refinement and this real life alignment. Sixth house things are always very practical. They're mundane. They're the things that have to be done, the unavoidable things that everybody has to deal with. So there's, a very strong attention on those kind of matters. You can take aligned actions that will match with this placement by reviewing your daily schedule and just adjusting what isn't working, by updating your planner or, way that you keep track of everything, by making one or two very realistic, easy changes to your routine that can add up to big changes later. You can align by addressing tasks or responsibilities that have built up and just sort of cleaning house that way, clearing clutter in your desk, clearing your to-do list, or in some cases, writing a to-do list if that helps you to organize things. This moon in this placement is definitely a simplification. It's calling for a simplification focus, where you remove what is unnecessary or draining and you add in some things that will help everything be easier. If there are symptoms that you or your pet are having, this could be an amazing time to get some answers about that. Symptoms are the way that the bodies basically communicate with us. That's the language of bodies, is symptoms. And if symptoms are speaking loudly at this time, probably taking care of that will be very helpful in the short and long term. Energy levels may be a topic, and keeping just a more balanced flow between work and rest and daily things will be top order. Every placement, every sign, every house has a shadow side. So some of the shadow side things that could come up to be mindful of so that you could recognize them if they do is the perfectionism, being overly critical of yourself or even others, high expectations, burnout from trying to fix everything at once, ignoring the signals that something needs to change, ignoring the signs, forcing things to happen because of seeming necessity, getting stuck in busy work instead of meaningful action. All of these are shadow aspects of this placement. Neglecting rest in favor of productivity. You could be super productive at this time. You could accomplish something you've been working on for 13 moons or a year, or it could be a shorter cycle, just one moon cycle, or anything in between. But there is still this shadow side of, really not balancing the rest for the sake of the productivity and the overextending yourself in service to others. This is a very service-oriented house, and so that shadow side may come up. Simple rituals at the full moon can help us to anchor in the energies, utilize them, and maximize the potentials. I like to do what I call reveal and release ceremonies at the full moon, where you ask for help to whoever you pray to your subconscious mind, to whoever else, to have the information be revealed and released, and the patterns be released that are holding you back along the lines of the topics that I've discussed. And when you evaluate what your daily life currently looks like, and you see what you would like it to look like, you can see what you need to shift in order to feel more supported. When you write it down, say it out loud, and feel this adjustment or release as if it's already come true, then you're activating this part of the brain, which is an important filter called the reticular activating system. And this will help filter in things that will be supportive of these intentions you're making, and it will help filter out distractions to what you're trying to do. So you can end your simple ritual with taking even just one practical action to improve whatever it is that you're asking for or working out. This house relates to the digestive system, the stomach, the intestines, gut health, assimilation, in some cases nervous system sensitivity, since a lot of our moods are really starting in the intestines, which this is a thing that people are just starting to figure out now, that our emotions are not seated in any one place in our body, and there is a strong connection between the state of our gut health and our emotional world. So these kinds of things may come up at this time. The connection between daily habits and physical well-being, how food and routine and these mental patterns are affecting the body, the signals that your body is trying to tell you that may be whispers before they become loud roars. Those kind of things may be elucidated at this time, and focusing on your relationship with those parts of your body or those things in general can really help you to utilize this full moon. So this full moon in this placement really will highlight this direct link between the routines and how your body responds, and showing levels of when you're getting maxed out. You may be able to handle more than you think, or you may be maxed out sooner and not realizing it. And this full moon can bring that to your awareness. So the bottom line here is that this is a very powerful moment around your daily habits, your health, your daily life, what your body's trying to tell you and how that reflects in what you're doing and how it affects your body. So it's not just about getting things done, although you may notice that that occurs as well. It's not just about accomplishment and productivity, even though you may notice that as well. It's very much about the realignment of those routines. So they're really supporting your energy, where you can do less and have better outcomes, and that your well-being, your energy levels, and sustainability will soar. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Virgo friends. All right, so let's look to see where this 8-degree full moon in Capricorn is going to show up for you. You were one of the only 2 signs, Taurus being the first and Virgo being the second, where you will get the best possible angle in all astrology from this full moon in Capricorn, because you'll get that trine energy. And for you, this is going to light up your 5th house. So we're going to do a deep dive into what you can do with a 5th house full moon, what kind of things may show up, and at the same time know that you as a Virgo placement may get extra kisses from this full moon. All Virgo placements can get those extra kisses, but those of you who are in the early degree placement, so August born into the first few days of September, and between 3 and 13 degrees, the closer to 8 degrees, the more you, if you know your degrees, may get the kisses from that placement. But all of the Virgo placements still get a little extra leg up for this moon. All right, so let's see about those 5th house manifestations. Okay, let's do our deep dive into what the full moon in your 5th house can look like, the opportunities you have, where you'll see this fullness and completion and fruition and drama and opportunities and revelations. So a full moon in the 5th house is a very creative and heart-centered culmination point. It could be something that's been happening over the last 13 moons or around a calendar year that's coming to culmination at this time. And along with it, new seeds are being planted for the next chapter. As this comes to light, we're moving on to the next process in those realms. Heightened awareness of joy and romance and self-expression, emotions rising around being seen and appreciated and loved, the sense that you want to express something and you can't hold it in anymore, some sort of creativity. Situations that are involving romance or dating or children may definitely come to a peak. Child rearing, the conception of romance, the conception of a child, the pregnancy, the childbirth, the child rearing, and whether the child is your creative baby or a human baby, it's the same energetic here. Something notable involving that whole process. This increased visibility of your talents or your creations or your passions, or something lighting up for your kids or for children that you work with or that are important in your life. These surges of inspiration or emotional expression that demand this release, this drive to have more of a passion-driven life, this drive to find your true love, to go into a deeper level if you've already found true love, this spotlight on your inner child and your authentic self. All of this is very much what this full moon in the 5th house will bring. The kinds of things that you may see reach fruition or completion are a creative project or an idea or a form of self-expression. This romantic storyline, a beginning, a turning point, a realization, an ending, or the ending of an old chapter. Let's say you've been with someone and now you're going to have a baby. The end of the chapter of you without children is ending. So it could be bittersweet like that, but also have great joy for the next chapter that's getting ready to open. There could be a cycle of learning that pertains to your confidence and what gifts you're bringing. Also could be very much about being seen and having your gifts be revealed. And you could be taking actions around learning more about something you're excited about. So taking classes or courses about something that you really want to get good at because you love it, and that it's just a hobby or fun for fun's sake or a bucket list project. All of those kind of things tend to come up with this full moon. So you may see efforts to follow your joy or express your talents really be ready to be expressed, and something you've poured your heart into may really become visible or recognized now, or some sort of chapter or cog in the wheel along in that process. This full moon can let you see where you're truly letting yourself shine and enjoy your life and where you're not, and that opens up the way for you to make positive changes there. So the kind of things that bubble up or are revealed at this full moon in the 5th house for you can be these hidden desires for attention or love or recognition. They could come in the form of this suppressed creativity, this fear of being seen. Emotional truths in romantic dynamics could be very much revealed. There could be some dramatic news within your love life, or something secret that comes out, for better or worse. Or you may be ready to share something, or share that you're in relationship with someone, or bring that news. There could be light coming to what's been holding you back for your authentic expression, and this deeper truth about what genuinely brings you joy and fulfillment. And it may be what you're thinking, and it may be different, and that may be where the revelation comes in. We always have tensions for opposites. We live on a planet of duality, and we see this intrinsic in the human experience. We see it in the way the wheel is set up, with opposing forces on each side of the wheel through opposite signs, through opposite houses. So the energetic of the 5th versus the 11th house will come up with this personal joy through group expectations, this authentic self-expression versus fitting in, this individual creativity versus collective goals, or shared focus with how you use your creativity to do something bigger. Being seen as you versus being seen as part of a group, and these group dynamics and friendships, and not losing yourself within those groups, and how you can maintain some autonomy while merging with something bigger. You may feel this push and pull through this desire to express yourself fully while having this wanting to belong or be accepted or feel like you're part of something. So there are many opportunities that come and many gifts, but one of the top ones are that you can get to see this creative and emotional truth that maybe has been hidden more fully. You can embrace what makes you unique and expressive and be loud and proud about that. You can have this moment of confidence that is really heart-led. And the physical heart itself is also in this 5th house. So information about your heart or deficiencies, need for supplements, need for diagnostics or medical care with your heart may also come up at this time. Some aligned actions that you can take will be around sharing or showcasing something you've created, or taking steps around being ready to do that, expressing your feelings honestly in a romantic or a personal situation, seeing where you may need to give more attention to your children or a creative project, doing something purely for the joy of it. Also being aware that because this area of your life does rule pleasures, it can also rule addictions to those pleasures. So if there's something that you really like that you default to, that may be okay, not in excess, but you sometimes go into excess, this type of topic can come up where there may be some reality checks, where there may be more balance, or even abstaining from whatever it is if balance can't be held, and it can become dangerous. So, this full moon can definitely bring some excess to pleasures or hobbies or things that you like to do. And that could be a very good thing, but if you are prone to having problems in those arenas, you may need more support at this time. Some other aligned actions you can take are to let yourself be seen, even if it feels vulnerable, even if it's just a small step, to spend time with children or engage your inner child. This is a childlike energy, not necessarily the best expression to be childish, which brings me into the shadow side. This childlike versus childish, is a very, very important distinction, because childlike wonder can be a wonderful thing. However, resorting to tactics that have immaturity or unnecessary drama that are not serving anyone, that's a shadow side of this moon. So you can look out for this in yourself and other people, this seeking validation instead of an authentic expression, this emotional overreaction or dramatization. This fifth house rules the art of acting and the art of drama itself. So there could be, as part of this shadow side expressing, this fear of rejection, this over-dramatization, this overindulgence, this escapism through pleasure, this letting other people's opinions dim your light, or in some cases, not listening to feedback that could actually be helpful to your expression. These are the kind of shadow sides that may come out at this time that we can look out for. I always love rituals for anchoring in the power of the moon cycles. So I like to call what the ceremony you do now a reveal and release ceremony. So if you are looking for information or help in stopping patterns or understanding the dynamics of any of these things that I discussed that pertain to your fifth house, you can ask for that at this full moon. You can write down what brings you joy or what you've been holding back in your expression, or the dynamics within your romantic life that are not fulfilling, or patterns within your parenting or how you were parented and how you're parenting. Write them down. Say them out loud. Feel them as if it's already come true. Feel what you are ready to express or celebrate. And take one creative or heart-led action. When you write it down, say it out loud, feel it as if it's come true, you activate the filtration system in your brain called the reticular activating system, which helps your brain to get on board to let you become aware of the things that will be helpful to these outcomes and let you be aware of the things that are impeding them. So you can use the power of your subconscious mind and this filter in your brain to change what you become aware of and change your perceptions and your perceptual reality centering around bringing the best outcomes in this arena. So the bottom line here is this can be a very powerful moment having to do with creativity and your emotional, authentic self. And it's not just about feeling more, although full moons definitely can bring that, but it's really this full-hearted revelation of what you love, what you create, how you shine, how you're not shining, how you want to shine, and being able to take some actions, even if they're small, around how you can do more of this more fully. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Libra friends. All right, let's do our deep dive into what a full moon at 8 degrees of Capricorn, where that will show up for you. And that's going to be in the 4th house. This is going to be a 90-degree angle. So this is an angle of births, an angle of breakthroughs for you. Some of those breakthroughs and those births can come from tension being released, building up, and finally turning into movement. It can be alchemical fuel, but there will be sort of this pressure that comes from this moon that can bring the results. Pressure is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's that last push that you got to do to get a project done, and it feels good to get it done. There's nothing inherent in this aspect that says it has to be bad or negative. Just know that there's going to be a little bit extra work that you have to do to get the gold for this fourth house expression. So let's do the deep dive into what a full moon in the fourth house looks like and how you may see this manifest for you. Okay, so let's do our deep dive into what it looks like when you have a full moon in your fourth house. The fourth house is actually ruled by the moon, so there's an extra level of emotional intensity that comes from that rulership. And of course, the fourth house being a water house, and the moon ruling the water, and the full moon bringing things up for high emotion, it increases the odds that this will be highly emotional. Now, do remember, highly emotional does not necessarily mean bad emotions. I've seen many times where full moons in the fourth house have meant amazing family accomplishment, amazing home and housing related experiences, beautiful memories made, important positive events occurring. So just because emotional intensity is present here, it doesn't mean that it's a negative experience. So like the dog shaking off water with water representing the emotion, that's what we do with the full moon. We shake off the energy that's been building in our field, and it will very likely manifest in these areas that have to do with your emotional and foundational space, where you reach a culmination point in your emotional world, in some sort of foundational world. Those energetics that set your emotional pace when you were a child, those patterns may come up now in a very big way. You may have a heightened awareness of home and your family and housing and real estate and your sacred space and your inner worlds. And these emotions may rise from deeply within, and sometimes unexpectedly. As full moons push things out, sometimes the force through which they come out surprise even yourself, and sometimes other people as well. This full moon, this fullness, this completion, this fruition, this drama, this culmination will bring with it a sense that something at the core needs attention, that something in your inner world is speaking to you, that you become acutely aware of emotional habits or patterns that are either holding you back or things that you want to affirm in that are going very well. You could notice situations that will bring your focus to your living environment or your family dynamics. Something may come to light within the family, a family secret, or some major news may come out in the family, for better or worse. You may feel this increased need for privacy and safety and emotional grounding, because it is, a very intense emotional sort of welling up. Memories, your past patterns, old feelings may resurface. You may go back to a place that you felt like home. You may be questioning what home is to you and reestablishing that anchor, or getting insight into some very important meaning for you in that realm. So this full moon brings this light, this spotlight on your inner world, and this sense of belonging to your familial tribe, whether that is your birth family, or the ones you've created, or people who you've gathered that feel like family to you. So this idea of something reaching fruition or completion usually involves some sort of cycle involving home and family or your living situation. And it could be a 13 moon, which is usually around one calendar year cycle that's coming to fruition, something that had started a year ago, maybe coming back around again, maybe going into a deeper level of experience. A new chapter may be opening as an old chapter closes. Full moons often correspond with a closing out, an ending of a cycle. But of course, at the same time, the seeds are planted for the new energy. So we feel that around the same time. There's something new beginning, there's something ending. And it could be bittersweet. There could be a milestone that's being reached within your family unit. There could be a birth, or there could be, children growing up, moving out, having a family of their own, something important going on with a family member. Very often the fourth house relates to mother or maternal energy, someone who's sort of held a nurturing space for you. That person, a person like that could come into full focus where they need help, or something's going on for them, or you're having a nice experience with them, or you're having something that needs to be resolved with them. So you'll feel these emotional patterns that are tied to your past or your upbringing that are coming up, and someone that's foundational in that period of time, they could have news or information that comes out. You might be sort of feeling this need, this desperate urge to create stability or comfort or security, especially in a time when it may be feeling like it's in question or feeling like things are spiraling a little bit out of control. A decision could be made about how you want to feel at home or where you want to live. There could be a new entrance into your home space or an exit from your home space. People moving in, people moving out, roommates, tenants, things like that. Decisions could be being made about how you want to feel in your sacred space, or for setting healthier boundaries within your emotional world that help you to feel safe. Something that you've been processing internally now or over the last 13 moons or a year may become clear and undeniable, and action may be taken. It may be very, very obvious that something has to be done. So one of the gifts of this moon is that you get to see where you feel safe, or if you feel safe, supported, and at home in your life, and where you don't, you may be ready to take the necessary actions that will help to facilitate over the next 13 moon cycle an improvement in this situation for you. So this idea of something bubbling up or being revealed may pertain to these subconscious wounds or patterns or conditioning, unresolved family dynamics, places where you see that things are repeating in your family, that you really want to be the place where the buck stops here, basically that you are the one that changes these cycles. And you may have a lot of emotional drive to do that. You may all of a sudden feel very strong feelings that you may have pushed aside in favor of trying to keep it together. And so if you do emotionally spiral, then just know that this is very likely part of a process that will be healing and will be better, but it may feel a little bit scary or a little bit overwhelming at the time that you're experiencing it, because when these emotions spin out, sometimes, it can make you feel unanchored, and that can feel a little scary. So just know that this energy will pass, and usually it passes very quickly. You may have some sort of deeper truth about this emotional foundation and this sense of security that you have. And remember this, it could be very intense. Bringing your inner truth to the surface sometimes is not, a calm experience. So there's going to be tension in your inner world versus your outer world. This house relates to your inner world, but we live on a planet of duality, and we can see the duality intrinsic in the human experience show up in the chart, how the chart is laid out in a circle. We have the opposing sign or the opposing house opposite at all times. So it's always there kind of speaking to and part of this process. So the 10th house relates to your outer world, and you may feel this push and pull between your inner and outer world, this tension with your inner needs and your external responsibilities, this story of your emotional well-being versus achievement or expectations that yourself or other people have on you, and this pull of home and family versus career and visibility. So you might feel this pull between the need to take care of yourself and your inner world, while the need to show up and handle responsibilities is happening at the same time. Regardless of how intense this happens for you, some very big gifts can come from this full moon, including getting to understand what your emotional needs are, having some clarity there in this world that can be a little bit diffuse, a little bit chaotic, a little bit hard to put into words. You may get some clarity here. You may also see what you need to do to create this stronger sense of this inner stability and grounding. And sometimes that comes from you basically feeling the opposite. And there could be this moment of truth or this moment of healing that occurs where you see what changes you need to make in your outer life that will resonate with your inner well-being. We can always take aligned actions with the full moon to use the power, kind of like riding a wave. If we jump on the wave of the full moon, you can actively use it to be very productive. And some of these aligned actions that you can take have to do with spending this intentional time at home or in a safe, comforting space, or making even one small move, a blanket, or, something aesthetic, or something that smells good, that appeals to your emotional senses, that helps to bring you comfort and helps to ground you as you go through your very busy life. You can make the choice to have these meaningful conversations with your family or your chosen family, and you may choose this time to say some things that are unsaid. Life and death walk hand in hand at all times, and while we don't want to look at the other side of life, which is the passing out of this form, we may be able to use this time to say things that if someone in our lives, or if we transition at some point, as we all will, things that we would have wanted to say. So it may be a good time to do a little emotional exercise and view your life from the beginning to wherever the end may be, and look back on this time and think about things that at that point you may have wanted to say or do now. And take that magical moment when people are still in your life, still present, that you can just tell them some things that you think that they should know and that you may just want to have said. So, diving deeply into that kind of emotional realm where you're sharing something that maybe really needed to be shared, or where you can maybe open up a new chapter and close out an old one by having that very important conversation. You can also make some changes in your living environment, big or small. Allow yourself to feel these emotions without necessarily rushing to fix them, just kind of letting them pass through, and prioritize rest and nourishment and your emotional care. And you can do that proactively before the full moon as well, just kind of carve out some time for reset and recharge. Every placement, every sign, every house has a shadow side. It has a range of potential manifestation. So some shadow side things that can come up so that you to recognize them when they are there are emotional overwhelm or excess reactivity. So if you see yourself kind of playing into that potential, you can bring some awareness to it. Another shadow side manifestation is getting stuck in the past instead of processing and releasing. This may be a time to move forward. And some things like just simple flower essences. There's a flower essence in the Bach flower remedies, BACH flower remedies, called honeysuckle. And it's a wonderful remedy for this time. And I say remedy not with intent to prescribe or diagnose or cure or treat. These are flower essences that are easily accessible and safe, and they work on the emotional plane. They're not intended to be focused on a physical healing, although some people find that when their emotions are healed, physical manifestations follow. But that whole thing of being stuck in the past, stuck in the emotions, stuck in nostalgia, sometimes something like the honeysuckle flower essence can help just to step out of that excess of the past focus. Something else the shadow side may bring are avoiding these necessary conversations, neglecting your emotional needs for the sake of obligations or fear, withdrawing too much instead of finding this balanced connection. So you may see those shadow sides come up and you can remedy those. I always like to do rituals at the moon, even if they're small and not elaborate. I always like to call the ritual at this time a reveal and release ceremony, where you ask for any of these things that I talked about that pertain to this area of your life to be revealed. And with that revelation, you can take the action. So if you reflect on what home truly means to you, what emotional patterns you're ready to shift, say it out loud, write it down. Write down what you're ready to release or nurture. Feel it as if it's already come true. And then take some small act of comfort or alignment with this energy. One small emotionally supportive action that can anchor in the energetic of this moon and can also tell your reticular activating system, which is a filter in your brain that you can use for conscious creation, because you can tell your mind what you want to filter in and what you want to filter out. And you can do that in this arena of the fourth house. This full moon is definitely a powerful moment of emotional clarity and foundational awareness, and it is a time where you may feel more, but it's not just about feeling more. It's very much about this deep understanding of what you need to feel safe and grounded and truly at home, or create home within you so that you have it wherever you go. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Scorpio friends. All right, so let's see what an 8-degree full Capricorn moon can look like for you. This is going to be showing up in your 3rd house, and it's going to be making a beautiful angle, a 60-degree angle of possibilities and opportunities. When you're combining the earth sign of Cap from the full moon and the water sign that is yours, that's a really great conversation that the stars can have. So that sets this moon with at least one layer of possibilities to be extra sweet. Now let's do a deep dive into what it looks like to have a full moon in the 3rd house and what you can do with that energy. Okay, let's do our deep dive into what it looks like when you have a full moon in your 3rd house. This fullness, this completion, this fruition, this drama, this bubbling out from the hidden realms may focus very heavily on news, messages, information, realizations that are either coming out of you, you figure something out, or information comes to you. So be on extra high alert for your phone and your emails in the days around this full moon, because the odds are much more increased that some important information is going to come in, and it may not be the time to be out of communication range or, ignoring your phone. I'm definitely all about digital detoxes, but this energetic really brings in this time where you may be getting a lot of information incoming and outgoing. You may get this sense that something needs to be said or understood or decided, or a decision may be made either by you or from someone around you that will affect you. It's this mental and communicative culmination point. So there's something coming to a head in this, in your mental arena, in the arena of words, in the arena of interacting with others through word or other communications. You may also see an increase in busyness and social energetics because there's rulership here for those domains. Neighbors, also all of your relatives except your parents and kids, although of course those can be involved as well, but there's special rulership in this 3rd house for aunts and uncles and cousins and siblings. So the news may come in from there, from those areas. Or you may have something you have to communicate to one of those people. There could be this increase in activity of your daily life or your errands or your interactions. It's a very sort of spiraling sort of energy that often brings a lot of busyness, a lot of mental activity, a lot of physical activity. There could definitely be emotions that are tied to communication or misunderstandings or clarity, because while the 3rd house doesn't rule the emotional aspects of communication, the full moon does. And it does bring these things out. I always like to describe the full moon like a dog shaking off water, and, the water representing the emotional realm. And so at the full moon, we kind of shake off all of this emotional static that's been generating in our energy field. And, sometimes that can be relieving, sometimes that can be exciting, sometimes that could be stressful, but there is this sort of build up and then this shaking off. You'll notice the full moon bringing this spotlight to your inner dialogue and these mindset patterns that you have, and maybe the realization comes through with something there. There could be some truth that's coming out, or some situation that finally, or understanding that finally gets put into words. So the kind of things that bring or reach this fruition or completion are a conversation, an agreement, an argument, a mutual decision, something having to do with writing or speaking or a content-related project. teaching and learning can come in there in a small way. There is this energy of taking information in and putting it out. So education can be part of this, taking an important test, studying for a test, getting results from a test, or making a commitment or having a realization about a course of study that you want to move along, or starting something like that. So this is a 13 moon cycle that's concluding about how you think and how you communicate. And of course, with this conclusion, the seeds are planted for the new way of thinking and communicating. So there could be some sort of mental paradigm shift that comes along with this full moon. Also, something that you've been processing mentally now may become communicated, or, more clear and easy to be expressed. And it may surprise you when it comes out as well, because, this fullness sometimes just brings things out with a strong force. So it could show you basically where you're thinking and communicating in a way that supports you, and where you're thinking and communicating in ways that don't support you, and what you need to do to shift that. So this energetic of things bubbling up from the subconscious or unconscious mind have to do with these thought patterns, especially things that are repetitive or limiting. So you may have a sudden realization about a limiting belief pattern, something that you keep telling yourself, and a really great cue, a tool that you can use anytime, but that is especially poignant now, is to really start to listen to the words that you use. The words that we use give away our belief systems. And sometimes we may be surprised. You can even enlist a friend or a family member, or, somebody that knows you well or is around you, to take special note of your words, even if they're said in jest. If you're kidding about something, even just something that's a repetitive pattern will start to give you insights into your ways of looking at things, your mental framework that could be helping you to be successful. And you could hear those words there. Could be helping you to be at ease or trusting the process of life and have peace, or they could be doing the opposite. So become like a super detective with the words that you use around this time. And it may be very, very, very revealing, especially if you hear yourself saying something over and over again. This time can bring the energy of unspoken words and conversations that really need to happen, and something that has to come out. So you may have to admit something. You may have to talk to someone about something. You may have to file paperwork. This could very much have to do with written communication, like filing paperwork, or just take care of some nuisance things that really are interfering with your joy, with your flow, with your organization, and possibly more. There could be something that you've been daunted by or that you've been putting off that really just needs to be done. And when you do it, you'll feel so much better. Miscommunications can definitely come up now, but it could be a pathway to better understanding about something that was kind of not spoken and causing trouble. And when it comes out, there could be clarity about, okay, so there's a mistake here, or there's confusion here, and now we can clear it up. This idea of mental clutter versus what truly matters, and really using your mind as a force for conscious manifestation. I always talk about the reticular activating system, which is the part of your brain that filters things out and filters things in. So at the full moon time, you can become very aware of what you're filtering in and what you're filtering out, and maybe make some changes to help shape your reality consciously. So it's a very, very busy time, but it can bring more order through this awareness. So it might feel a little bit haphazard or disjointed or spiraling, but the way that the information comes out can work its way towards better organization. Whenever we look at the third house, there always is some tension in the opposite house, which is the ninth house. And the reason for this is that we're on a planet of duality. We can see this duality intrinsic in the human experience in the chart. Each of the signs has an opposing and complementary force. Each of the houses have opposing and complementary forces. And so we're looking at this energy of mundane information versus greater understanding. Talking versus making something happen. Principles versus just information. So the daily thinking versus your perspective. These are the kind of things that you may feel a tension and a breakthrough in. things like what you know versus what you believe, or immediate information and maybe extraneous information versus this big picture meaning or understanding or action. So you might feel this pull, like you need to deal with what's right in front of you, but you also need to step back and see the bigger picture. So, not missing the forest for the trees and vice versa, this kind of thing may come up as these tension points where you can have these breakthroughs. So along with all of these opportunities, there are some really solid gifts that can come from this full moon, regardless of whether the drama feels good or bad or challenging or whatever it is. It can give you an opportunity to really clearly see your mental patterns. And then, of course, you can have a chance to shift them. Sometimes it takes practice. When you become aware of your words and the way that they're affecting your life, you have a default. And in some ways, there's an addiction, an addictive pattern of your nervous system defaults to these words this way because it's part of a bigger matrix. So changing the way that you communicate or use words to create the reality you want to create is a gift of this moon. You can definitely have moments of clarity and insight and truth-telling or truth-hearing as information may come to you that had been withheld. And one of the biggest gifts is you can see where you need to change your mindset in these ways that will really change your daily experience. So, of course, you can always take aligned actions. And when you align it with the energy around this moon, we really feel the moon 2 to 3 days before, 2 to 3 days after. Some people feel it before then, sensitive people or people paying attention. But at least for sure, a 5-day period with a couple of days before, the day of, a couple of days after, it's really active to make these aligned actions. And some aligned actions you can take at this time that match this placement of the full moon in the 3rd house are to have that important conversation you've been avoiding, to write or journal or speak what's been on your mind, to clear out your mental clutter with lists or notes or organization or apps, something like that. To finally make a decision based on the information that's available now, even if you have to have some sort of caveat with it that it might not be the final decision, but some action or some decision, small as it may be, may need to be made. And this can also be a culmination of a 13-moon cycle. 13 moons take place over about a calendar year, so it's like a calendar year cycle that contains these 13 moons, that you may be processing and bringing into action at this point. So it could actually be kind of a big deal. But if there's nothing big going on, the small things can build up over the course of the moon cycles. So you can listen actively. That's another aligned action that you can take. And the clarity that may come from this time can come through speaking, but also through hearing. Something else that I always suggest may be a good idea at full moons is to keep your schedule a little bit lighter if you can help it. Because sometimes the emotions or the other things bring things in that you have to deal with. And when you leave a little room, it makes it easier. Some other things that you can align your efforts with is to overall simplify your schedule and just sort of find some sort of grounding cord to pull in this scattered energy. Something else that this 3rd house rules is physical mobility and the vehicles through which we have our physical mobility. So in one case, it could be your body, your physical mobility. It could be a car, bike, however you transport yourself. Those areas can be ruled. And sometimes the fullness in this area can bring accidents or mishaps. So it's definitely a time to be proactive in good habits. Not texting while walking, not texting while driving, just things that make sense to do as a practice, but maybe there's been a habit that you've fallen into. So knowing about this before the time is also helpful because you can be extra careful around this time and maybe make the decision to take on some better habits that could be safer, not just now, but for all of the time to come. This also may be a time where you get a new device for communication or a new mode of transportation, or something happens to your old ones, and that's the fruition or the drama where it's becoming clear, okay, it's time for an upgrade or time for something new. So some things to be mindful of. Every sign, every placement, every house has this spectrum from lowest expression to highest expression, and the full moons can bring in some of the negative traits or the shadow sides of these energetics. So some of the shadow side energies to be aware of at this time are overthinking or mental spiraling, not finding a grounding cord or an anchor, reacting too quickly in conversations or being too hasty to have them. While it may be a spur, like an impetus to have an important conversation, the reason for the conversation and the place that you're in or the state that you're in when it's initiated, those are things that, we can really look out for to try to come from a place that will result in the outcome that you want. If you want an outcome that will be cooperation, then the way that the conversation is initiated could make a difference. And those are the kind of things we have to be careful of at this full moon. There could be a shadow side of misinterpreting information due to the emotional intensity, like jumping to conclusions which turn out to be false, or talking or initiating something without clarity, or listening without presence. So the distractions could be the shadow side at this time, and really being too absorbed in those. Or also taking in too much information without actual integration, which leads to that spiraling, because the integration is what grounds it down. So a simple ritual that you can do, I always like to do what I call full moon reveal and release ceremonies at the full moon time, where you reflect about what your mental patterns are. You reflect about how you communicate with others, and is it productive? Is it getting you what you want? Are other people getting what they want in communication with you? What needs to be said or understood, or what needs to be said less? Write it out clearly, say it out loud, feel it as if it's already come true. That activates this reticular activating system I mentioned earlier, this filter in your brain. Doing those things helps your reticular activating system to know what you're trying to filter in and out. And taking one communication-based or decision-based action at this time could also be a way to anchor in this ritual. But you can ask for blocks to your higher expression of any of these things discussed to be revealed at this full moon time as it lights up your third house. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Sagittarius friends. All right, let's go see what an 8-degree Cap full moon can look like specifically for you. This is going to show up for you in your second house. This is the money house, among other things, so that's very exciting. So let's do a jump now into what you may see from this, how you can use this full moon, and all kinds of other full moon magic for Saggy at this time. Okay, let's do a deep dive into what you may see come to culmination, fruition, from the hidden space into the light, bubbling up from your subconscious mind, being revealed when you have the full moon in your second house. So this moon is going to be for you a financial and self-worth culmination point. Something has been occurring, possibly over the last 13 moons, possibly a shorter duration than that, and possibly a longer one. But either way, something involving your money, your financial security, your self-worth, your resources, your stability emotionally and materially is coming to a head. Emotions rise around your inner security, but also your outer. Your value, your self-worth around finances, what you have, what it means, what your priorities are, and whether the actions that you're taking are aligning with your current priorities. The full moon is also, or not also, always a great assessment time. So if you have been doing things a certain way in your financial world, this may be a wake-up call or an inspiration to look deeper. Maybe there are things you're paying for that you don't use. Maybe that's adding up to money that you have to work harder to make when you could just dial back the spending and not have to work as much. Or maybe there are things that you want and you need to get a plan together to work more or work differently to achieve those material goals. So you may notice this increased visibility or something being revealed around your income, your spending, your material connections. Our material world is not just things having to do with money and the things we buy with money, but is also our connection with the earth around us, the environment, the footprint that we have. So there may be something that comes to light, an accomplishment, an awareness around that connectivity to our home that we share, which is the earth. There's a sense that's building of building something. So this is a builder moon. This is also a maker's moon, I like to call it, because things that you make with your hands, things that you build with your hands, or that you're building in some other way. You know, the lattices of those structures are often reaching some sort of important mass at this time. There may be situations that highlight these kind of topics, and you may get this pull to ground, to stabilize, to reassess priorities, to build. You may also get into a deeper connection with what you do during stress, how that relates to your body, like sensual things, eating, drinking, all of these kind of things, that the way that we interact with the world through our senses, basically. Those type of topics may come up, and you may develop a deeper connection to your body and your needs and your physical reality. You may decide you want to grow a garden, or you may decide that it's time to take some action to create security in your life where it wasn't. There could also be the other end of the spectrum where you could be getting too comfortable. You could be getting in your hobbit hole, and this could be the time when a wizard knocks at the door and invites you to sort of reevaluate those comfort levels and the value that that has to you. Because often at the full moon time, the energy of the 8th house, which is the opposite of the 2nd house, which is the discomfort, which is the unknown, which is the, emotionally charged opposite and synergistic point to this placement, may come into question. So you may be asked to let some of that comfort go at this second moon, or you may have been taking a long time to finally have that comfort and security, and you may see that manifest at this time. You may see financial efforts reach fruition or completion, savings, earning, investing, spending. There may be a cycle of learning as to your financial consciousness. There may be decisions that you make around what you keep, what you build, what you invest in. There may be results that are very, very obvious about how you valued yourself and your work, or lack thereof. Something that you've been growing materially is coming into visibility now, and it may be very clear and visible or measurable at this point. It's also the topic of how are you utilizing your resources to reach your priorities? And this is something I talked about earlier. There may be that reassessment where you may find that your family is the focus, but your work is taking so much from your family that you may have to reassess how you work so that you can spend time with your family, in that kind of process, or anything else like that. That's just one example of a priority that often is connected to this very responsible house. Some things that could bubble up or be revealed with this full moon have to do with lack and abundance, survival and thriving. They can be subconscious patterns tied to worth, scarcity, deservingness. There could be an interesting piece of information that comes up about your consciousness about money and things, in your family line, genealogically. You could be assessing things like scarcity, as I mentioned, but you could also be assessing things like waste. So if there's an overabundance of things, you may be assessing the pileup of stuff, the drowningness in material things. And, this is just an assessment point or an evaluation point. It can be very internal, and you could be making decisions that nobody knows about that are very, kept kind of close to you. Or this could be an announcement point where you're getting ready to take action on something. So it's either going to come out, or you're going to have it come into your awareness, but make sort of private decisions around it. So this polarity of needing to stand on your own and versus, needing security, and this need to engage with support from others or not, these polarities may come up at this time too. So some opportunities that will come with this is that there are certain things around these relationships that we just talked about with the material world that you may be able to see clearly and practically. And then you can recalibrate your relationship with these items or these experiences to create more of this grounded empowerment. And certainly, if this isn't the accomplishment point for you, this could be the awareness point that leads to a future accomplishment. Maybe soon, or maybe it will be something you build over the next 13 moons, which is about a calendar year. Some aligned actions that you can take to match with this moon's energy to make you can actively push it further is to review your finances honestly. Income, expenses, priorities. Make some grounded decisions about money or resources, even if it's small steps. Let go of possessions or commitments that don't reflect your values, or make purchases that are in alignment with where you're trying to go in that direction. This may be a time to consider or to take action on adjusting your prices, your rates, your boundaries, your financial expectations, and take these steps towards greater financial independence or stability, because that's what it's very much about. It can also be about your inner space, your throat, your thyroid. Those areas of your body may be more in focus, although any health awareness can come at this time. And physical care may be part of the big message. Symptoms that the body has been giving us, which is their language, the body's language of expression is how they express what they need, that may become loud at full moon times. So you may notice symptomology racing. And this may be the invitation to take action on discovering the mystery or try to translate those symptoms into language that you can understand. And professional, people can help to be those translators. Your own research can help. Meditation on your body and your symptoms also can bring some awareness or messages for you. Since we have a lot of drama that comes at full moons, this is a more grounded place to have the full moon, but that doesn't necessarily mean there won't be drama, overreactions, something coming out more furiously than intended because it's, it's been repressed and now it's kind of being released forcefully. There are things that you can be mindful of that you can watch with the spectrum of manifestation. So every moon will have its potential for lower and higher vibrational outcomes. And so you can be aware of things that you can consciously work with, like fear-based decisions around money. Is there a constant fear around money? Maybe it's time to do something about the fear, and that can help the experience of the money. Is it overspending or over-restricting due to emotional reactions that may be manifesting this way? So if you see that happening, that may be something to be tempered. You could be tying your value or your worth entirely to material results. And if this isn't serving you, or if it's leaving some sort of void in some other area of your being, this may be a time you can do something about that. But you may notice this full moon may try to put you in that direction. There could also be a temptation to compare yourself and your financial situation to others and staying in that place of fear rather than alignment. I always like rituals to utilize these power spots in our astrological experience, like full moons. I like to call them reveal and release ceremonies. I do have a blog on this. You can find all of my blogs at anniehelpsyou.com, and then just click on blogs, click on astrology. But a simple ritual to ground in this energy has to do with reflection about what you've built or accumulated and what you want to build and what you want to accumulate. Reflection on what truly feels valuable and supportive, and write down, say out loud, and feel as if it's already come true what you're ready to release or recalibrate or what you need help doing. When we do these simple acts, say something out loud, write it down, feel it as if it's already come true, those are ways that we actively connect with our reticular activating system, which is a part of our brain that is a filter that filters information in and out. Similar to how all of a sudden there are a bunch of car dealerships in your neighborhood that you never saw when you're looking for a car, your reticular activating system knew you were looking for one because you in some way impressed upon it that you were. And those places that you normally don't see that were always there come into your awareness. Well, it can work with everything else. So at this full moon time, if you take this, take these actions about what you want to build, the relationship you want to shift with this material reality, then that system will start filtering in things to be supportive and filtering out things that will detract you from your goal. And then you can take one practical grounding action around money or resources to tie it all together. This moon can definitely be about money matters, but it's more a clear reflection of your value and the opportunity to align your life with your new set of values that are true for you right now. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Cappy friends. All right, so let's do a deep dive into what this full moon, your full moon, looks like at 8 degrees of Capricorn. This is going to happen for you in the first house. So in a second, I'm going to do a deep dive into how you can use this energy, what you may see manifest, and what the magic, full moon magic is most prominently for you in this placement. Also wanted to let you know that the closer you are to 8 degrees, so we'll say 5 degrees in either direction, 3 to 13 degrees, Capricorn placements, the closer to 8 degrees, the more you will get a full-on, very obvious hit from this full moon. So it may carry more intensity for you the closer you are to that placement. And that's going to be basically December-born Capricorns, early January-born Capricorns, with the most intensity, right? Those few days right before New Year's. All right, so those days around the new year, you may see a little more intensity from this, but the goodness, the gold, the intensity, all of it is there for all Cap placements, and we'll talk about what it looks like as it's hitting the full moon in your first house. Okay, let's do a deep dive into what it looks like, what it feels like, what you may experience with this full moon in your first house. This full moon point is the ending of something, possibly a 13 moon story since the last time this moon came about. It's a personal culmination point. Something about you personally reaches some sort of fulfillment or drama or creativity where you are bringing something out of yourself. Something comes out having to do with your identity, your image, how you're showing up in the world, how people view you. It can be a highly reactive or responsive energy. There may be a heightened awareness of how people see you all of a sudden, for better or worse. So you could be cast in the limelight for something that you're doing or something that you're bringing, or you could be stripped vulnerable where you feel like you're having unwanted attention, or that something is coming out that feels more private that you don't necessarily want to be seen. So either end of that spectrum of visibility. Emotions are rising to the surface about yourself, which is always in relation to others. In some form, your relationship with yourself, I guess, would be an example of something not having to do with others that could come up at this time. You're having this sense of who you're becoming, and possibly something that you put in process is coming to completion or fruition now. There could be a major accomplishment, a weight loss goal, a muscle building goal, a health goal, something involving your vitality or your health could be coming up. And we have to remember always the full moon brings things to our awareness. There are things that were in our subconscious or unconscious mind or unknown or not visible to us, and then all of a sudden it becomes visible. So something about yourself may come to light that you didn't know was there, or that you knew was there and you were actively suppressing or repressing. But it could be that you were actively trying to bring something within you out. And this could be your moment. This could be your shining time when that big accomplishment occurs. So you have a version of yourself concept or your identity coming to fruition or completion, or some major milestone. Things involving independence could definitely come up, or assertion of yourself. You might have things like personal changes with confidence or appearance or your presence, how you carry yourself. There could be a big cycle of learning about putting yourself first versus accommodating others, or vice versa. If part of your path has been to be self-preservative, to preserve yourself, you may see that awareness and start to make shifts, whatever is true for you in your story. And of course, something could have been initiated anytime within the last 13 months that really becomes visible or results oriented at this point. So at this point, you're seeing something that you've become, or something that you were coming out, and then you get to make your decisions about what you're going to do with the next 13 moon cycle, as to whether you want to develop what has come out or whether you want to make adjustments. This energy of bubbling up or being revealed can have to do with these hidden feelings about how you've been treated or perceived. There could be subconscious patterns that are core things, birth trauma, anything having to do with the time when you were very young, things about self-worth or your courage or your identity. There could be suppressed desires that are now being revealed to be more authentic and honest with people and honest with yourself, bold, to capture your autonomy or your independence. There could be resentments that bubble up now from times when you held yourself back, or you let somebody else do that to you, or made that choice to do that. So some sort of deeper truth can come out that has to do with whether you've been living in alignment with your truth or not. This isn't necessarily a subtle placement. Full moons are not generally subtle. There are placements, there are houses that they could manifest in that might be a little more subtle, might be a little more quiet, might be a little more reserved or personal to yourself, or less obvious. But this isn't one of those places. Things that surface here tend to be very clear, emotional. It could surface in the form of ambition or motivation or inspiration as well. You could finally get ready to do something very important that you've been needing to do. And of course, always look to the current transits to see where we're at in the retrogrades and, what's going on in the current month's general horoscope scene to kind of align how to use this energy. But these are the kind of things that come up. So you may be noticing places where you've compromised too much or not enough. You may have a realization that has to do with relationships, because the first house and the seventh house always work in tandem, and the seventh house is the house of relationships. And a full moon in this house can definitely reflect back to some way that you are in relationships. And there may need to be a rebalancing of independence or a rebalancing of partnership or how you show up. So this need to be yourself and this need to consider others, this polarity would be very strong commonly with this placement. So you can take some actions that would be aligned for this. Coming to some sort of conclusion, making some sort of decision, taking some sort of action. Could be internal, like acknowledging change that's happened within you, even if it's not manifesting yet. You could express something you've been holding back to yourself or others. You could make a decision that really honors your true identity. You could take care of your physical body. This is a major part of the message. Your body speaking to you through symptoms. You may become suddenly aware of what those symptoms mean, or they may get to a point or come to a head that makes them undeniable or unavoidable anymore. Definitely guard your head and your teeth and your eyes and your brain, your neurological system, your mouth, just everything on and in your head at this time especially. But you may notice, especially if there are symptoms coming in to that area. I mean, any symptoms shouldn't be ignored because your body's trying to talk, and it would behoove us to listen because it could prevent a lot of drama if we do listen. But it'd be something especially significant about that area of the body or the neurological system. So the opportunities here are, you may get to see yourself more clearly and without distortion. You may become aware that you've been seeing yourself, your body, your image in some way that is not correct or not accurate or slanted by your fears or other subconscious programming. And you may start to see yourself differently at this time. Another opportunity is that you can integrate lessons about your self-expression, whether it's too robust or too quiet, that polarity. The fullness of the moon coming to this area of your chart really has to do with the embodiment of something, not necessarily intention, although you can set intentions. This is like a full body, full being ownership of something. And it's a time that you can release these outdated versions of yourself and own who you are now. You can use the seed planting opportunities that come, with the next new moon, to plant seeds about where you want to go if you're now doing the big release of the outdated parts now. And there will also be some things to specifically be mindful of with a full moon in this first house, which is emotional reactivity or impulsive expression. It may be perfectly fitting that these things have to come out. Sometimes we do things to excess when we've had a deficiency of them. So sometimes not being able to voice something for a long time turns randomly into a roar because that's the only way to get it out. But incorporated in the full moon is the chance to have the cognizance, if there is an emotional release this way, that, okay, maybe that was a little bit too much, and maybe there might be a little damage control or fires to put out from going to the other extreme. So owning that maybe something was too strong with this full moon can be part of the healing process, and you can step forward now that it's out and gain your balance again. There can definitely be this over-identifying with others' opinions of you, or the opposite, not enough. Not enough taking in feedback or kind of being too self-contained. Every sign, every placement, every planet, every moon has this range of potential expressions. So, some of these things can come out and be a little bit messy, and then we can fix them. Something else to be aware of is to swing too far into independence or dependence. So evaluating that, making snap decisions based on temporary intensity. It may be the time to blaze forward into the unknown and do something different to finally get out of something that's been holding you back. But since this is going to be, a lot of extra energy, there is a possibility that feeling that intensity may make you commit or do something that is not putting you on a path that you've intended. Something else to watch out for at this full moon time when it's in your first house is taking things personally that are actually reflective processes. So other people may be going through their own full moon expressions, and it may or may not really have anything to do with you, even if they seem to be or are trying to make it about you. It's always great to do rituals during the full moon that kind of grounds in this intense energy. I always like to call them reveal and release ceremonies. So you can ask for anything along the topics of what we've discussed to be revealed and released. You can say that prayer, you can set that intention, you can do inner work around that or outer work around that. You can reflect upon who you were 13 moons ago and who you are now. 13 moons corresponds to about a calendar year. You can write down the version of yourself you're ready to release or evolve beyond. And you can speak your truth, even if it's just to yourself, or make a decision. And another way to ground in this energy is to take one authentic, identity-aligned action. Just something, could be something quiet or something big, just that anchors in that you're using this energy for the purpose that the universe seems to be intending it. Whenever we're working with actively utilizing the power of our conscious and subconscious minds, when we write something down, say it out loud and feel it as if it's already come true, that activates a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. And this is the filter in our brain. And when you impress upon it that you're looking to do something, looking to reveal something, looking to accomplish something, it can filter out things that will interfere with your goal, and it can filter in things that will help you get there. So by writing something down, saying it out loud, and feeling it as if it's already come true, these are ways you can communicate with that filter in order to get more of the power of your subconscious mind. So expect heightened emotions at this time, but not just that. What will probably be revealed in some way or another is a clear mirror showing you who you've become, what your past trajectory has led to, and showing you clearly what needs to come next for you to reach where you would like to go. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Aquarius friends. All right, let's do a deep dive into what this 8-degree Capricorn moon, full moon, where that's going to be showing up for you. That will be in your 12th house. So let's do a deep dive now into the magic, the mischief, the mayhem, the fullness, the completion, the fruition, the possibilities that happen from a full moon in the 12th house. All right, let's do a deep dive into what the full moon in your 12th house can look like, what comes to light, the drama, the accomplishment, the conflict, the triumph, where this moon will bring to light very important information and experiences. So when there's a full moon in the 12th house, very often there's some sort of closure, a release, a spiritual culmination point where something rises, comes to a head, and then is completed. And especially when we're talking about a full moon, we've got to factor in at least a 27 to 28 day cycle, but sometimes it's also a 13 moon cycle, which is about a calendar year since the last moon. So there's something that's bigger that's going on as well that could be a culmination. What you may see is a heightened awareness of your inner world, those subconscious patterns that are weaving their way through your life. You may get this sense that something's ending, even if you can't fully explain it yet. Something is rising. And these emotions rise from a deep, quiet place, sometimes unexpectedly. So you may have this increased sensitivity to energy, to environments, to foods, to people, and your subtle impressions, your intuition, may be very, very, very profoundly enhanced. You could have a breakthrough in that arena for sure. Your dreams could become more vivid. Your understanding or a conscious utilization of your dreams and the themes that come up could be more powerfully enhanced. You could have a pull towards solitude and rest and introspection. You can have situations occur that reveal things that have been hidden. Information may have been hidden from you, or things that you have hidden may come out intentionally or unintentionally. Have to be very careful of privacy here and guard your important things, information and documents and financial information. Sometimes something like this occurs where there's a breach to one of those things, or you could be inspired to take more actions to be protective in those arenas. There could be something occurring that shows you something you avoided, or something behind the scenes that's been going on without your knowledge, or something that you've been doing behind the scenes that you're finally bringing out. So this is definitely a spotlight on your inner world and these unseen or lesser seen influences. These type of influences are often felt but not always seen as logically, although you can often see them through the language of symbolism or synchronicity. So symbolic things may occur, synchronistic things may occur that may be very, very, very obvious that there's something else going on beyond the normal 3D material reality. Because the truth of the matter is that most of what is, we don't actually know yet. We don't have the perceptions, the knowledge, the sensory capacities to understand most of what is. So we're in this giant discovery process of learning about these things. So sometimes there are things that can be picked up on by your senses that can't necessarily be explained, or extrasensory perceptions. And this moon governs all of that. Spiritual processes, psychological breakthroughs, connections with life after death, the place where things meet, dawn and dusk, and that time before you fall asleep or when you just get up. You know, these tween times are very much ruled by this 12th house energy, and you may see an activation in those areas. This full moon may give you an opportunity to confront a fear or an addiction or a genetic or other familial secret or pattern that could have been around for many, many, many generations. And this may come to your awareness at this time, or this may have an occurrence or an issue at this time, or this can have a solution at this time. So some things that are reaching fruition or completion have to do with this cycle of emotional processing or inner healing. And you can look back to 13 moons ago when this happened before, or about a year. You could look back in the last 27 to 28 days. You can evaluate these unconscious or subconscious patterns. And having a period of retreat or reflection or withdrawal may be what you need in order to take this information in, to perceive the information that's around you now, and to translate it. This also can help you have a breakthrough in translating the language of spirit, because it is a different language, and that's why it's not always as readily available to everyone, because it doesn't always speak our native language. It's often in the language of these symbols. So there could be something that's been dissolving in you, and that something could now reach this point of release or closure. The 12th house very much has to do, as I mentioned before, about addictions, or that blurring of the fantastical into the real, or the logical into the intuitive. So there's a blurring or dissolution process that can happen. And sometimes people who are trying to do harm work in these shadows. So you may have a perception that there's a vulnerability somewhere in your life at this time that you can then shore up, or get some confirmation that your intuition is expanding. You'll see these subconscious fears and memories or emotional residue come to a head and then shake off like a dog shakes off water. And there could be very many quiet realizations that you keep personal to you, or feelings that you may have suppressed may start to come out and you become aware of them, or even past events that you suppressed or repressed. And it's very subtle in some cases, or it can be very overwhelming in other cases, but either way, it's bringing this unseen into awareness. There's tension between the 12th house and its opposing / complementary point, the 6th house. And that's because we're on the planet of duality. And we see this duality intrinsic in human experience. We see it in the chart. Every sign, every house has its opposing and complementary force. And you can feel that tension at this full moon time. So rest versus productivity, and surrender versus control, and your inner world versus your daily mundane responsibilities that are practical and necessary. The letting go versus the fixing and doing. So you might feel this pull to slow down, to rest and release, at the same time as feeling the need to stay on top of everything and keep going. And so this moon may bring some sort of breaking point here. If you're prone to having challenges in your mental space or your emotional space, this may be a time where you schedule some extra support the days before, the days after this time, because sometimes things can get a little blurry or a little bit more confusing, and having support scheduled might prevent you from being or scrambling if there's some time-sensitive thing that comes up at this time. I always like to try to leave some space around the full moon when possible with scheduling so that you can show up for these emotional opportunities. There also can be great artistic, spiritual, musical, creative, private, personal pursuits opportunities that come up at this time. Some other opportunities and gifts are you get to release what's no longer serving you at a deep level of this subconscious space and of this ancestral space. You may be completing a cycle of healing. Forgiveness may occur, closure may occur, understanding of the connectedness of all things may also occur, and basically little dips into the world of the unseen may give you some clarification or understanding about some pieces that were in your mind that weren't connecting before. Those connections can happen during this time. So some aligned actions that you can take are to prioritize that rest, those personal pursuits, that sleep, that quiet time, that meditation time, journaling, meditating, reflecting without pressure, letting go of something that feels heavy or that drives you to stress-related dysfunction, taking some things off your plate, reducing the external noise, having a digital detox, stepping away from unnecessary commitments. These are all things that could be good at this time. Being out in nature, working with someone to do deep inner work like EFT, EMDR, NLP. You can look up these and understand more about these processes that qualified people can do. EFT, actually, you can find free stuff online to do for yourself. And this is a way to entrain your nervous system to a new way of being and lower your cortisol levels. Many scientific studies have shown now that the emotional freedom technique can actually lower cortisol levels and boost immune response into a more positive, functional response. So, and there are other studies about EFT as well, but this is something that you can do yourself that can help you not just sit with issues that come up, but help you do something productive with them. Every placement, every house, everything in astrology will have its shadow side. And this moon placement is no different. Some shadow pieces that may come up at this time that you can look out for so that you can name and call out or consciously work with are escapism or avoidance instead of actually resting. So habits or things that may make you try to avoid what you're feeling rather than feeling them, or instead of resting. Sometimes over-isolation or withdrawing too much can also be a problem. So either end of that coin, not withdrawing enough or withdrawing too much. There could be confusion that leads to inaction. This is a spiraling, an emotionally spiraling energy. And it could lead to some confusion when really some gentle movement or presence is needed. And that's another part of the shadow side. A big shadow piece here would be ignoring intuitive signals or very obvious signs. If you're having a collection of signs that are coming up very obviously, the shadow aspect could cause you to dismiss them or ignore them. And something else that the shadow aspect could manifest as is holding on to what's clearly ready to end. So this is a time where there may be this big closure, this may be this big culmination, and not letting it happen would be working with the shadow energy here. I always like to do rituals around the moon cycles that help to actively use the energy and use the potentials. So you can use this time to reflect on what feels complete or ready to dissolve, what you're ready to release or surrender or forgive. Write it down, say it out loud, feel it as if it's already come true, and do some sort of quiet, symbolic act of release. With the loudness that this moon can have, it could be a louder act of release, but this is a very personal, quiet space, so those symbolic efforts can be just as powerful as something more overt. When you write something down, say it out loud, feel it as if it's come true, take an action on it. These are all ways that you alert the filtration system of your brain, the reticular activating system. You alert it what you want to filter in and what you want to block out. This is your way of consciously using this system for your benefit. Things like affirmations, work on this level of your being. It's not the only way to do this, but it is a way to impress upon your subconscious mind that the opportunities that will come or be present from what you want, that your brain recognizes them when they're there rather than walking by them. Every part of the chart has its body rulerships and its health system rulerships. One of the things ruled by the 12th house energy is feet, both your physical feet and the energy of grounding and connection to a path and direction and an anchor. Also the lymphatic system and fluid balance, relating to this clearing and this flow and this release and this constant gentle movement that keeps everything in process, this ebb and flow, this breathing in, this breathing out. Immune sensitivity and overall energetic permeability can be here too. So things involving too much permeability in the intestines, in the, from the perspective of autoimmune. Sometimes there may be some messages or flare-ups or information or solutions that can come from this full moon about how you are, how your energetic permeability is syncing with what your physical body may be doing and how that could be affecting your immune system. And in general, the body's response to this emotional accumulation and this need for rest. Every moon cycle, we build to this fullness at the full moon and then we release it, shake off that energy like a wet dog. So you may notice an extra sensitivity to foods, to toxins, to your environment, to substances, and to people or places or things and other energetic inputs. So one of the main highlights here would be where your body is needing to clear out and what your body is really looking for and craving to bring in for its highest good. So this very powerful time, the 12th house, is the last in a cycle of the 12 before the new cycle begins. So this is about letting go, but it's not just that. It's a very deep clearing that prepares you for a completely new cycle of becoming, that clears all of your cells on the deepest level for this new input or information that will create your new matrix. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye. Hello, Pisces friends. All right, let's do this deep dive into where the 8-degree Capricorn full moon is going to be for you, and that's going to be the 11th house. Before we get there, just know that this is 60 degrees away from your placements, which is a beautiful angle of opportunity. It's a sweet aspect that this full moon is making with your Pisces placement, so that adds to the positive potentials that you have, Now let's do a deep dive into the mischief, the mayhem, the magic that this full moon can bring specifically for you as a Pisces, and what you can do actively with this moon. All right, let's do a deep dive to see what the full moon in your 11th house will bring to light. What kind of things may come to fruition? What kind of things may come to completion? Or what kind of drama or exciting events may happen in this area of your life? So, a full moon in the 11th house is a very future-focused and community-focused culmination point. You will have heightened awareness of friendships and groups and networks and your place within a tribe or a group or people that share a common language or goal. This sense that there's somewhere you belong and somewhere you don't within these groups is a very strong theme when the full moon hits in the 11th house. You may notice increased visibility within your social circles or audiences. There may be some sort of coming out of something related to the 11th house, social media, community, in-person things, computer or futuristic device or technology related things, patents, community projects of any kind, humanitarian efforts. You may see some uptick in those things, networking, something like that in your life, or maybe a friend needs help, or maybe a friendship is in the light to be evaluated. This full moon in the 11th house will bring emotional responses that are tied to your connection and support within these groups, or lack of those. You might notice the spotlight on your dreams, your big dreams that you have in life, not the ones at night, and the goals and the long-term vision. Like if you could be honest about what you would really love to do, if you thought that it could be possible, or if it didn't matter if it were possible, those kind of big dreams that you might even be afraid to tell anybody. Those are the kind of things that are in this space that the full moon may bring some clarity or information or something bubbling out. There could be encounters that highlight alignment with like-minded people, or situations that reveal the role that others are playing now or for your future, or that you may play for them. So the kind of things that reach fruition, completion, may have drama, may be under scrutiny, may be in the limelight, are these friendships or group dynamics, collaborative projects or shared goals, efforts in community building, the audience, or a cycle of understanding regarding fitting in with a collective. And this cycle can be a 13-moon cycle, which is usually around a calendar year, or it could be a smaller cycle, something that's been going on for a month or a few months, but something's coming to a head and something's being accomplished, or something is being seen, maybe for the truth of how it is, maybe a dimension of how it is, but something in those arenas are coming to light. Something that you may see with the elucidation of the moon here is the people and the environments that are in your life and questioning whether they're aligned with where you're going. So doing a soul-searching process of what it is that you really want for the future. Has that changed? And have the groups around you, are they phasing out of importance? Are you going to dive in deeper? Questions like that you may be asking about these groups now. The kind of things that may bubble up from your subconscious or unconscious may be about hidden feelings about belonging or inclusion or exclusion, or realizations about which connections feel supportive and which ones are draining, or a deeper truth about your future vision and who is going to be a part of it and who isn't. Patterns could come out about overgiving or under-receiving, or losing yourself within the group, or not showing up fully with your gifts to support the group. And this awareness of whether your goals are truly yours or if they're influenced by others, and if that's a good thing or if that's something that needs to shift. There's this tension with the 11th house and its opposing side, which is the 5th house. We see the duality that's intrinsic in the human experience show up in the charts. We can see in the layout of the chart, there are opposing signs and opposing houses, and they have an opposite and complementary relationship. So this group versus the individual expression, this belonging versus standing out, this, these shared goals versus personal joy and expression, this community versus creative independence. And you may be pulled between wanting to connect and be part of something and wanting to express yourself freely and individually. So you may notice that this comes up at the moon, and you may be asking some really deep questions on these topics, and things may be revealed to you about these types of things. So there are many opportunities that can come, and many gifts that can come. One of the things that could happen is that you can see your social connections and your future path more clearly, or at least know which questions to ask, or start asking different questions. And you can align more with people who truly support this growth and vision. And you can also release these misaligned connections and strengthen the aligned ones. So it's a discernment process that's occurring here in those areas of your life. Some aligned actions that you can take are to reach out to supportive friends or colleagues or networks or your communities. So just taking that action of reaching out or participating in something could be a great use of this energy. Having the conversations within those group dynamics that need to be had. Doing that reassessment about those connections and the alignment versus draining. Taking a step towards long-term goals, even if it's a small one. Sharing your vision and seeing who resonates. And also to be open to new connections that reflect your future direction, or to be interested in the people who tend to show up, where you may look at the patterns of what those people are bringing as they come back time and again. Every placement, every house, every sign has a shadow aspect to it. And this full moon can bring out that shadow aspect and put it into the light. So some things in the shadow side that you may see come up at this moon is trying to fit in where you don't belong, or losing your individuality within a group. I talked about that earlier. That's a big one here. Comparing your progress to others rather than honoring your own process. Possibly overextending yourself socially, or holding on to those outdated connections because of habit or because of guilt or obligation rather than alignment. So you may see some of those shadows come up. I always like to do rituals around the moon, and this can help anchor in the energy and to use it to its potential. If you reflect on who's in your current circle, what your future vision looks like, and how these align or not, then you write down what you're ready to align with or release. Say it out loud. Feel it as if it's already come true, your perfect situation with your group dynamics. And then take one connection or goal-oriented action. All of these things will help to notify the filtration system of your brain, the reticular activating system. We'll put it on guard for what you're trying to create and what you're trying to release, so that it can filter in the new and filter out the old. Every area of the chart pertains to different body parts or systems, and this area pertains to the circulatory system, physically in your body, and also the energetics of how you circulate among groups of people. The blood flow, the oxygenation, the energetic distribution, physiologically and within your different parts of your life. The ankles and the lower legs, also energetically related to movement and flexibility and forward momentum. The nervous system patterns that are related to stimulation, overstimulation, understimulation, and general balance versus imbalance in those arenas. And the impact of social energy and environments on the body. How are your surroundings with your groups and those connections affecting you physically? You may notice something important about that at this full moon, and that may be what is speaking to you about what direction that you're supposed to go in. This could be a very, very powerful connection between what you see and feel in your body with what is going on in these areas, and it can build your fluency of your body's language with symptoms or with other feelings that can help you to have more optimal health. And in general, a sensitivity to the collective or environmental influences and how you're experiencing that in your body. So this full moon might highlight this for you. It might highlight how your connections in your environment are affecting your physical energy, how it's affecting the circulation within your body, and you may see these moments of clarity around these important connections and the future direction. So we have a lot of energy of social developments here and social evaluations, but it's more than that. It's more of looking to see who you're aligned with, where you're headed, and where to make your future alignments to support that future growth. All right, so head right now in another browser window to anniehelpsyou.com and click on Unleash to access that July written report by me with all of the best and the worst dates of the month and other things you really need to know in a written format about the month ahead. You can also refer to my July 2026 horoscopes called This Never Happens, The Wild Stars of July 2026. And that's in podcast version and on YouTube as well. And if you want to go back to listen to how Jupiter is going to manifest for you in Leo, you can go back to my June report and you can get the download there. If you're time stamping to another part of this report, I'll see you there. If you are finished for now, I'll see you in the next report. Bye.